Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Today it is Friday, the 4th of August. The 4th? It is the 4th of August, 2023. Friday. We made it to another Friday. Welcome in, everybody. My name is CareyHolzman. If you're new here, welcome in. We have the friendliest, kindest, most supportive community in our chat room that exists on the internet. Prove me wrong. And please consider being a part of it. If you're a jerk, well, there's lots of other places for you to go. This is a place for nice people. It doesn't matter your age, gender. It doesn't matter your experience, your intelligence, or your lack of intelligence. We don't care. We don't care how smart you are. We don't care how dumb you are. We don't care how tall or how old or how short or how young. Just don't be a jerk. It's really easy, but you'd be surprised. About 80% of the population can't seem to reach that bar. But we're glad we have you guys here, and we hope anybody new joining us will consider wanting to stick around this friendly and positive atmosphere. And what an amazing community. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Thank you for the early contributions, by the way. Paul O'Brien sent an Amazon gift card, very kind of him. And in fact, I'll read his message here in just a moment. Our good friend Buster, Peter Laycock, joining us from Scotland with a 10-pound contribution, says, good evening, Carey and Marlena, everyone in the chat, all the best from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh is 61 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 16 degrees Celsius. I am so jealous. Sarge Tech also contributed prior to the show starting, $5 via Super Chat. He says, here is continued support for the Gatorade Fund. Right on. I'll say that one's on you, Sarge Tech. Thank you. And Ben Laird, also from Scotland, contributes 10 pounds via Super Chat. Says hello from Scotland. Boy, I got a feeling I need to move to Scotland. It seems like I got a lot of friends. Why does it feel like I have more friends in Scotland than I have in any other country in the world? Why am I still here? And the weather sounds amazing. Bring on the rain. And Mike Visions, also joining us from the UK, contributes 5 pounds. Thank you, Mike, as always. All right, so we try our best here to avoid any sort of sponsorships. And if we do have sponsorships, they're usually sort of pay for performance kind of deals. So I'm not making commercials and shoving them down your throat. Don't you get enough of that? You're driving in the car, there's billboards, you turn on the radio, it's advertising, you turn on the TV, it's advertising, you turn on anything, and there's more advertising. But I am a real working computer technician, and there are some hardware and software products and services that I rely on for my business in order to keep my customers happy, and I'm happy to share with you my experience. And today, we had a great opportunity recently from the folks over at Synology, who has never worked with us before. All the other Synology videos I have made have been out of my own heart's desire, but this time it's different. And I hope it's the start of a beautiful relationship because, well, I don't want to make any secret about it, and I'm not kissing up here. I'm being honest with you. I love Synology. Why do you think I made those videos at my expense? And there's so many of them. And why do I show you guys and share with you my experience and my knowledge specifically about Synology NAS units? Think about it. What's in it for me to do that? I'm just really a fan. And it's made my business so much easier. You have to understand, I started my business in the mid-1990s. And I didn't know anything about Synology. Were they even around? I don't even know. But when I started taking on business clients, especially around the early 2000s, we needed a central location to store all the data. This idea of everybody storing their own stuff on their own hard drive and hard drives failing constantly, those mechanical drives constantly failing. Backups were more critical than ever. Calls were coming in constantly. And I needed some way to put files in a central location. And oh, well, that's easy. Just get a server. Well, that's what every boneheaded technician who thought they were smart would say. And I say that because there are companies where a server is absolutely necessary. But I see servers put into small business operations with fewer than 10 employees. And these servers are like $5,000. They have ongoing maintenance. I saw people that were running their own mail servers, for crying out loud, that were like lawyers' offices and doctors' offices. It was completely ridiculous, over the top, high maintenance, high expense. And I said, there's got to be a better way. So for my own personal use, I started to experiment with network attached storage, or NAS, NAS. And I bought a Seagate Black Armor NAS. And do you want to know why I bought, of all the NASs I could choose from, do you know why I bought that one? Because of the price and because I was ignorant. Now, I don't want you to have to go through the same learning process I went through. I want to share with you my experience, and then you take that for whatever worth you think it's worth. But I thought the Seagate Black Armor was amazing because I didn't have anything to compare it to other than a server. It was cheaper. It solved our problem on it was easy deployment, but it was extraordinarily unreliable. Data corruptions, hard drive failures, one thing after the other. And I had deployed these in a couple of my clients, which did resolve, let me rephrase, the number of data corruption or data loss issues or downtime that was happening because of the ongoing maintenance the server required was significantly improved by going to the Seagate Black Armor. But just as soon as you got comfortable and confident with it, out of nowhere, it crashed on you. And of course, that's when I learned you've got to make backups. Even when you have a RAID 5 array, I had situations on more than one occasion where the entire array got corrupted, and other situations where a drive failed, which caused another drive to fail. So now with a 4-drive RAID array, you can have one drive failure and you're okay. But if you have two at the same time, or before replacing one bad one, if two are bad at this, you're only leaving you with two, everything's gone. It's all gone. The stress level, the embarrassment, the trouble to the customer, to my own data. It happened to me at least 3 times. And then there were a slew of bad drives. The 3 terabyte, were they Seagates or Western Digitals? Every single one of those drives I put in failed. Not all at the same time, but they all failed. And they were all replaced under warranty, and then those failed. And having other friends as technicians in the industry, I was told, have you tried Beacus? Have you tried QNAP? Have you tried Synology? Have you tried, whoever? So I started to look into it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to experiment for myself, and got a Synology 4-bay NAS to replace my Seagate Black Armor. Crashed, and I wasn't going to buy 4 new drives for it. I said, that's it. I'm getting rid of it. I'm done with this nightmare. And I need to find an alternative to offer my customers, because I can't really sleep well at night not knowing that they're going to call me tomorrow because of the Seagate randomly just crashing for no apparent reason. So I got a 4-bay Synology. I don't remember what model it was. And I have to tell you, I was blown away. The interface was like Windows. It was graphical, versus the Seagate, which was like looking at an old BIOS or DOS screen. You could install apps on it, all different kinds of apps. Over 100 apps to choose from, just like you can install apps on your smartphone. They have apps for Synology for media distribution, file access, FTP server, video camera surveillance center, virtual machines. You build your own cloud. You don't need Google Drive. You could just make your own Google Drive. You don't have to pay money to Google or Microsoft. You do that right here. There's so much. I can't even list it all off the top of my head. Automated backups, synchronizing one of these units to another unit, whether it's on premises or in another country, they can synchronize the data. So I'm not having to go make the backups live and in person and drive back and forth. I was blown away. It was a world difference. It was far more responsive. And so I was like, okay, this is great. And I upgraded my clients. I said, look, we got to get rid of these Seagates. They got to go. And one of my clients, the Seagate server corrupted again. We had a backup. We lost, I think, 2 days of data, which wasn't too bad. Client wasn't too upset by it. Said, this is it. This is the excuse now. Let's go ahead and get the Synology. got them the Synology, restored the backup onto it, never failed since. That was years ago. I now have 4 clients running Synologies. I had a half dozen at one point, but those clients have either sold their business or the business is closed up. But when we parted ways, they were still relying on it. So I don't know if the company that bought them or if they're still using them today, but there's no reason why they couldn't be. So the next time I had a drive failure, it turned out, and they were running really well for a long time. Well, once again, we're going to chalk it back up to ignorance. I was using desktop drives in the Synology NASs. And I was still using the ext4 file system. And that's just a bad combination. So I said, okay, starting to see this, like when it happened a couple times. So it happened to me, it happened to one of my clients, and I think it happened to another client, all within a matter of months. And I said, okay, there was a Synology DSM update that more or less said, these drives you're using aren't compatible. And they hadn't done that before, so it's not entirely my fault, but I was like, okay, I got to get drives designed for network attached storage. They are different, and it does make a difference, and they do cost more money because they're worth it. Buy the right tool for the job. So once again, using myself as the guinea pig, I made the plunge, and I got the network attached storage drives. Oh, and here comes Camera Girl.
Hello, everybody.
You decided to join us today?
Yeah.
All right. So the network attached storage drives immediately seemed more responsive. And, it kind of held my breath wondering, is there going to be any issues anytime soon? And there wasn't. So a client of mine had a problem where the employee was making a backup of the server on the server and making a backup on the server, back on the server. And then that's backup on the server. They put on the server, they backed up again on the server. And it was creating a whole bunch of network traffic and just jamming up the entire storage array. And everybody was complaining it was slow and they'd have to unplug it and plug it back in. And they weren't shutting it off. They were literally just pulling the plug on it. And they were doing this daily, is what I found out. Like, don't you do that. I mean, they abused the heck out of it. And it still worked. Like, I can't believe it tolerated that kind of abuse. And I said, look, I know some things differently now. The Synology I bought them still only supported ext4, and they were using desktop drives in it. It's like, okay, you've been using this for years. It served you well. Let's get you a modern Synology. This was a rack system. Let's go ahead and get you the proper network attached storage drives. We've got all the data. We'll just copy it all off and then copy it all back on. Be no big deal. You're going to be down a couple hours. And they said, no problem. We did it. We got them in the BTRFS file system, which is way, way better than ext4. So much better. NAS drives, so much better than desktop drives when used in a NAS. And of course, the modern Synology DSM operating system, which is now 7.2. Never heard another peep since then. It's been almost 2 years now. Not a peep, nothing. Okay, so at Studio A, I have a 2-drive Synology. I got rid of the 4-drive, and the reason I got rid of the 4-drive is you can now buy a single hard drive. That's what, 22 terabytes, 24 terabytes? The only reason we were using 4-drive bays was in order to get the capacity we needed, because the maximum size hard drive we could buy, not that long ago, was 3 terabytes. And then not that long ago, it was 12 terabytes. My Synology NAS at Studio A still has 2 12-terabyte drives in it. I want you to think about this for a second. Putting 2 12-terabyte drives in a RAID 1 array means one drive, all one drive does is it copies what the other drive does, so it's invisible to you. You have one 12-terabyte drive to write to. and a hidden 12 terabyte drive that mirrors everything. So if either drive fails, you have an exact copy of that drive, and the system doesn't go down. It just, a red light comes on, it sends an email, and you better replace that drive because if the other one goes out, all your stuff is gone, and hopefully you had a backup. So if somebody were to break into your building, or there was a fire, if there was a flood, you still need to have proper backups, okay? But the most common reason people need to restore data is because of a drive failure or drive corruption, viruses, ransomware. So anyway, two 12 terabyte drives gave me 12 terabytes on my 2-drive Synology. The Synology I replaced it with, remember I said I had 4 3 terabyte drives. Same thing, right? 12 terabyte? No, because it's a RAID 5 array, one of the 4 drives is hidden out of use. And that way, any of the 4 drives can fail, doesn't matter which one. And the remaining 3 have, what's the word? Redundant data from the other. Each one drive has redundant data from the other 3. It's a mathematical equation that essentially says no matter which drive fails, the other 3 remaining drives can pick up with the remaining data without any data loss or downtime. So that means you lose one drive's worth of storage. So if I had 4 3 terabyte drives and one drive is not available because it's basically your spare tire, that gave me a total of 9 terabytes that I could use. Now, by going to a 2 drive with 2 12 terabyte drives, one of the 12 terabyte drives is not available to me. And instead of having 4 potential drives that can fail, I cut my failure rate potential in half. If you have 4 tires on your car, then you have 4 potential flat tires that are going to need to be replaced. Your odds of a flat tire are 4 times greater if you have 4 tires versus 1. The unit is smaller, it uses less power, it generates less heat, and it's nowhere near as noisy as having 4 drives. Now, if you're somebody who needs 80 terabytes, obviously a 2-drive array isn't going to get you there. Okay. So when Synology reached out to me and they said they have the updated version of their 2-drive, sort of an entry-level storage bay, really. There is one lower than this, but this is, I can tell you, I don't have a client that would need more than this. I used to back when drive sizes were smaller in capacity, but not anymore. I do have 2 clients that have racks. Even though they don't have servers, they do have the server rack. And in order for us to secure the NAS in place, we buy a Synology rack station, which is a rack-mounted version of this with 4 drives in it. Obviously, because of its length, it would make sense not to put 4 drives in it. But it's way overkill for both of these customers. But that's all right. I mean, they got the money. It's the same interface. It's no different to me. I still set it up the same way. It's just the package it's put in is different. That's all. So when Synology said, we've got this new version, an updated version of the DS220 coming out called the DS224. Would you be interested in reviewing it? I was like, yes, please. Now, I'm very happy with my 2-drive array. I think I've got 3 DS220s. And the one I use here at Studio B, I believe I have 2 12 terabyte drives in it. So it's way more space than I need. And I was very interested to see what Synology has upgraded from the previous model because the case is the same. Synology is repurposing a lot of the same tooling and equipment from previous models. This keeps the price down, it gets on the market faster. And we're going to go over what these are today and what you should be looking out for, in my opinion, if you're considering buying one of these, along with some ideas of why you might want one. There's so much it can do. Whether it's for your own personal storage of media, photo library, music, movies, like I say, a camera surveillance, a recording station. If you want to play with micro containers and virtual machines and remote access, have it be a Plex server. I mean, it's just all kinds of crazy stuff. It's really up to your imagination, even if it's just a home lab. You know, a lot of people doing home lab stuff. So that is the long-winded introduction on why we're here today talking about this. Synology is not paying me to make this video, but they did send me the unit. And they also sent some Synology branded hard drives to use in it. We're going to talk a little bit about that. They're not required. You can use other manufacturers' drives. When you get into the real high-end certified network attached storage devices for enterprise corporations, then you're going to have to use their drives. But that's for accountability reasons and certification reasons. But for home users at this level, it's your choice. But you definitely want to make sure you're getting network attached storage drives. And they usually have a compatibility list you can check with before you order anything. Let me give a quick shout out once again to some contributions I missed while I have been yapping. Richard Palmentier with a $10 super chat says, I'm glad to be a part of this amazing community, and hello to Camera Lady. Thank you, Richard. Paul O'Brien with another contribution, this time €5. He says, hello, Daddy. And Marlena, hello, Mammy. Well, if you saw my face, you both would disown me. Oh, I'm sure it's a face a mother could love. Apparently you're Mammy now. I guess it's better than Grandmammy. Welcome in, son. Glad to have you here. Ian Gooch contributes 10 pounds, says, hello, Carey. It's a cool 17 degrees Celsius. Hope it's not too hot in Phoenix today. Let's not even talk about the weather in Phoenix. I thought we were past our 110 plus degree days in July, always knowing August is terrible. August is usually the worst month to be in Phoenix. But I thought maybe we got it out of the way in July and we'll just have humidity. No, we're still 115 to 117 all this, the next 7, 8, 9 days. I think the 10-day forecast, we're at 115 or above, I'm pretty sure, every day. And then as we enter deeper into August, the humidity level goes up. So, you know, people say, yeah, but it's a dry heat. Not in August today. So aside from going outside, checking the mail, I'm trying to stay in the house with all the windows, the blinds drawn, the shades drawn, keep the house as dark as possible. It's really, really bright out there. It'll burn your corneas right out of your skull. Daniel Emberley says, I only use Synology for backup. I've been very reluctant to use it for other applications. Well, that's the beauty of these devices, is you can go at your own pace, whatever you're most comfortable with. You know, I understand not wanting to be too reliant on one thing to do too many things, converging everything so that when one thing breaks, now all these things are down. But I will warn you, once you go down that path, it's a one-way road. You're going to, oh, let me add this and see what it does. Oh, that's really good. I wish I would have done it earlier. And then you'll be like, okay, well, that was a risky move. I'm going to enjoy this for a while. Then you might feel a little brave again, a little sooner this time. Wonder what this will do. And then you try it. And before you know it, you're going to have multiple apps and you're going to be like, why was I so afraid of this? Let's take a look what's in the box. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you're my customer and you've got a server in your office and you have fewer than 20 employees, there's no reason for you to have that server in most cases. I can save your electric bill, keep your uptime up way higher, and you won't have anywhere near the security vulnerabilities of Windows by putting in one of these that takes up less space, doesn't require all of the hand-holding and maintenance, and this effectively has an operating system on it. Just like there's Windows, just like there's Apple's OS or Android on your phone, Synology has an operating system called DSM, and it's a full integrated, self-sufficient operating system, which is way more secure than anything from the big guys like Microsoft and Apple. Part of the problem is they're so popular, they're big targets. This is a specialty operating system. And make no mistake, this is an operating system. So just like Linux would be an operating system. It's made by Synology, and when you're buying Synology, you're getting the operating system. Okay, you don't have to buy that separately. It's part of the deal. Some people argue, for example, is Apple a hardware company or is Apple a software company? I would argue that Apple is a software company and they just are forced to make the hardware to run their software. Well, they're not forced to. They make more money. But you can't just go and buy an Apple computer and put your own operating system on it. At least not easily. You'd have to be pretty clever, ingenuitive, and maybe get some guidance online on how to do that, and be a very expensive way to be cheaper to just buy a PC if that's what you were going to do. Some would argue that Synology is really a software company and that these hardware boxes themselves, anybody can make these. You can make your own NAS at home. You can take an old box and put it together and say, look, I'll use free NAS or use some other software to make my own NAS, and you stick it to the man. I won't buy their stuff. But if you're still using desktop hard drives and you're still using a full-size tower in order to have enough room to put your drives, it's likely going to be very unreliable, unstable, and potentially eat up a lot of electricity, collect a lot of dust, be a lot more noisy, take up a lot more room, and be very limited with what it can actually do by comparison of what you can do with the Synology arrays, NAS devices. I was going to say DiskStation, but they also have RackStation, which is the rack mountable case. And anyway, it's kind of a see it to believe it thing. So today we're going to do this, as always, live and unscripted. I've never taken this out of the box before. These drives Synology sent, there are two 4 terabyte Synology brand drives, which is pretty small. I mean, by today's standards, I would not put a 4 terabyte drive in a RAID array today. Drives are so inexpensive, including network attached storage drives, drives that are designed for this kind of usage. A minimum of 12 terabytes. 18 terabytes, it's around $300. So you could get 2 of those for $600. Pick one of these up for under 400. You're under 1,000 and it's all done, and you're good for years and years and years in most cases. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's open it up, see what's in the box, see how it's packed. What's great for me is it looks exactly like the DS220 packaging, and I've opened up a lot of those for my clients and for myself. Like I said, I've got one at Studio A, I've got one here at Studio B. In the box, you'll see it looks like this. Now, when I was looking for a replacement network attached storage device, remember I told you I was using that Seagate Black Armor? I thought that was the bee's knees, and that was just my own ignorance. Some of the units that I saw available from other manufacturers had the drives enclosed inside of the NAS. So you had to get a screwdriver and physically open the box up like a computer to take out a failed hard drive. Now, at this point, I had replaced countless drives in those Black Armors. And I was so thankful that I didn't have to open the unit up and take things apart. The drives were in sleds, and you just pull the handle down and pull the drive out. Super easy. You can do it while it's on. You don't even have to shut the unit off. So I was surprised that there are units out there where you have to open the unit up. I think the entry-level Synology 2-bay, it's white. I think that one you have to physically open it. And then the drives have to be mounted with screws. Like, no thank you. The whole point of a NAS is to be able to upgrade it or repair it without using any tools and without having to take it apart. So on most of the Synologies, except that one I mentioned, you have well, in this case, they have a plastic door. Some units don't have this little plastic cover or door from Synology, and it depends on the size of the NAS. If it's got more than 2 bays, then usually it's just, they have a nicer fascia for the trays that each drive, the sleds can come out. But this has little rubber grommets on the end of it here. And they just kind of fit into the holes. And with friction, they just slap in there. And because they're rubberized, there's no vibration noise from the drives running or the fan. It runs very, very quietly. And then inside, as you can tell, we've got these two drive sleds here. And I think you push down. I always want to push up on these. Push down on them, I think. Is it up or down? Oh, it's up. So, but you put your hand in here, and I push my thumb up, and the drive sled tray comes out. And you can install the drives in these without any screws or tools. Same is true if it was a 4-bay or an 8-bay. When you look inside of here, it's very cavernous. Obviously, you got to have room for those drives. But look right here. There's room for you to add a laptop memory module. Now, this particular unit has 2 gigs of RAM soldered onto the board. And that's more than enough for you're using it as file storage. If you want to start running apps on this, you might want to put some more RAM in it to speed it up a little bit. The most this will hold, unfortunately, because it is more or less an entry-level NAS, is 4 gigs. So you get the 4 plus the 2 that's soldered on for a total of 6, and that's the most you can put in there. You'll see they've got nice branding on the side. Nothing is gaudy or in your face or RGB. Thank you. On the back, there's our power connector. We've got a USB 3. This is only a 5 gigabits per second port. We've got 2 1 gig ports. Synology, for some reason, has been resistant to go with 2.5 gig ports, where a lot of the competitors have. I don't know why. However, there is something called SMB multi-channel. And with SMB multi-channel, basically all you have to do is run 2 network cables to your switch or your router, and then you effectively get a 2 gig internet, 1 gig here, 1 gig there, and you don't have any configuration. You just check the box, the machine does all the work. It's super easy, barely an inconvenience. Why wouldn't you do that? And honestly, is there going to be that big of a difference going from 2 gig to 2.5 gig? Or you can just configure this as a failover. So if one fails, then the other one kicks on. But in all of my years, on all the NASs I've ever worked with, I've never seen one of these fail. Now that I've said it out loud, who knows? But no, it's never happened. This is a Kensington lock port. So if you get one of those steel cables with the little key, you can turn in there and you can bolt this down if you're afraid of somebody walking off with it. You've got a large single fan in the back that's going to run all the time. It's not a smart fan in the sense that I don't think it is. I think it always runs. So if you're in a dusty environment, I would still, even if you're not in a dusty environment, get one of those air compressors, those little cans of whether you use the canned air, which is expensive and it's not good for the environment, or use the air dusters like the battery operated USB rechargeable ones I use, and blow this out and take the drives out and blow it out this way. You don't have to open it up. It's very easy it'll take 20 seconds of your day, and do that once a year. And that way you can prevent the dust buildup, which can relate to eventual fan failures, or fan may have to run faster because the dust acts as an insulator, causes everything to heat up. So little maintenance goes a long way, and it takes very little effort and very little time. On the front, we have our power button. We have a reset button. I have never, ever needed to use the reset button, but okay. We have another USB port up here. Now, unfortunately, Synology they used to let you plug in like a Wi-Fi adapter. But it turns out that's one of the worst ways to transfer your data if you're moving a lot of data to a NAS, is over Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi is inherently slower, right, than a wired connection, and it's less secure, generally speaking, than a wired connection. So somebody at Synology got it in their head and said, we're turning that feature off. We are not supporting any network USB adapter on here. So they've limited its use. You can plug like a UPS in here. So if your power goes out, it informs the the Synology unit, how many minutes it has of battery life on the UPS to shut it down safely. It's very limited use, unfortunately. There are some, and I've made a video about it, ways of bypassing that with community projects that aren't supported by Synology. And, there's no guarantee if it's going to be reliable or anything to bump it up to 2.5 gig. But Synology does make other models. If you were that power hungry of a user, then maybe this isn't the place for you. But if you've never had a Synology before, okay, I definitely think, especially if you're new to NAS or you have a small or home business, this is where you want to start. And you may not need to go past this point. But here's the thing. This little guy supports the BTRFS file system. Now, a lot of the cheap NASs don't do that. Now, we talked about ext4, that's like a Linux-based file system. It's just old. So BTRFS is the B tree file system. BTR, that's B-TR, B tree. FS means file system. Sometimes it's called Butterfuss. It's more advanced, it's more evolved. It's just better. It's more robust. It's more efficient. Since using BTRFS, I've not had a single data corruption. Again, I've said it out loud, but it's never happened. And I don't think it's ever going to. If you buy an old Synology off eBay because you want to save some money, you might find it does not support BTRFS. And you might say, well, what does Carey know? ext4 works fine. Yes, from somebody who doesn't know any better, I could see how you would come to that conclusion. And after you've had some time with it, and after you've suffered your first data corruption, to give it time, then you might reconsider what I'm telling you right now. I'd like for you to avoid that experience because it's typically a matter of time. And even if you have your data backed up, it's still time consuming to address it, to reset everything and copy all the data back. Wouldn't it be great to just set this up, plug it in, and never have to deal with it for years? This thing will get its own updates for security. You don't have to touch it. Okay. There's no locks on these drives. Some of the Synology units, you'll see they have a little round key to lock the drives, but it's a plastic lock. So if somebody was going to steal it, they could just take a screwdriver and break the lock. Okay, so as far as that goes, put it in a locked room if that's a concern. What else can I tell you? We've got rubber feet on the bottom here. Have I missed any features of this? This, for some reason, again, I'm not 100% on board with this decision, but Synology is using the Celeron J processor that was introduced in 2019. It's a 4-core processor on this brand new unit. I don't quite understand why they're using a 4-year-old processor. And that 4-year-old processor does support 2.5 gig. So it's not like there's a limitation why they couldn't have put 2.5 gig on it. So somebody at Synology is making decisions that don't make any sense to me, but I'm sure if I had the opportunity to talk to them, they could explain the reasonable logic behind that, but I'm struggling to see it. I can tell you if I try, like if I was Synology, why would I use a 4-year-old processor and why would I not offer 2.5 gig when all the competitors are doing that? I have to imagine it's about cost. It's about retooling the factory or retooling the circuit board. It's about getting to market faster. It's about sticking with a known platform that's been proven. It's secure. It's robust. You can't fault them for kind of playing it safe and keeping the price down and being able to get it out to market faster. This isn't even available yet. If you click on the link on Amazon, you'll see it's pre-order. It's coming out very soon. It's very well made. It's solid. This is not a cheap piece of junk. And I like that it's matte plastic, so instead of glossy where it's going to show fingerprints and such. Now, Synology does make units with faster connectivity. Some units, they even have a replaceable and upgradable network card slot. This is not that. This is more entry level. This you're probably looking around $350. And this supports what's called SHR, that's Synology's hybrid RAID. So as good as a RAID array is, RAID stands for a redundant array of independent disks. I've heard some people say that RAID stands for redundant array of inexpensive disks. But I think inexpensive is a subjective term, because I've seen some RAID arrays with very expensive disks. So you have a RAID array of inexpensive disks using expensive disks. So I think that's an improper explanation of what RAID stands for. It's got to be independent. Each disk is independent. That's universally objectively true. Each disk is not necessarily inexpensive, depending on how much money you have and what you think is inexpensive. I guess compared to the old mainframe days, I don't know how they got there. But anyway, that's not Synology's decision. But Synology has improved that, and they call it Synology Hybrid RAID. Why is Synology Hybrid RAID important? Can I help you?
Synology's watching.
Oh, well, welcome in, Synology. So why would Synology Hybrid RAID be important on a 2-drive NAS? It's only a 2-drive NAS. What's the point of it? If we're going to go into a RAID 1, that's pretty much all we can do. We need 3 drives or more for a RAID 5. But here's what you don't know. And again, we're going to chalk this up to my ignorance. Synology's hybrid RAID allows you to mix drives of different sizes. Okay? And again, that doesn't benefit you on a 2-drive NAS. But think about this. What if you have one of these and you decide you want to go to a 4-drive array, and you want to use the 2 drives you've got now to lower the expense? Maybe you're going to sell this on a used market, and now you want to get the 4-drive NAS from Synology. Think about this. If you did that if you had configured with SHR or Synology's hybrid RAID, you could take those 2 drives out of your 2-drive Synology, put them into a 4-drive Synology, along with 2 more drives that don't even have to match, and automatically resize your array accordingly and not have to back up all your data and copy it all back and do all that work. It's pretty cool. Or maybe you just start off with, maybe you've got an 8-bay Synology NAS and you're only using 2 bays. But as you're growing, maybe you're into digital photography or videography like me and all the videos I make, you run out of space quicker than anticipated. All you have to do is go buy another drive, pop it into bay 3. Boom, you can auto extend the size of your storage pool. And then when you run out, go buy drive 4, drive 5, drive 6, and they can be of varying capacities, whatever's on sale that day. Maybe you put a drive of capacity in there that wasn't even available when you bought the NAS and mixed it with all your other drives of varying capacities that are several years old and continue to grow your array. Come on, that's pretty darn cool. My Seagate Black Armor didn't do that. So that's what Synology Hybrid RAID does for you. Even on a 2-drive array, it gives you this ability to move forward and expand should you grow in that direction, which is entirely possible. When I'm going to put a NAS, whether it's for use for myself or my clients, it doesn't matter. I have certain requirements. And those requirements are, 1, it has to support BTRFS. That is not negotiable. 2, there's no way I'm going to need a screwdriver to open it up to replace the drives. I've had too many drive failures. However, not in the last few years. So that maybe drives have gotten better. 3, we're only going to use network attached storage drives. We are not going to repurpose desktop drives. Even if they work, no way, I'm not sullying my reputation so my customer can save $10. I'm not doing it. These are absolute not negotiable. If I'm going to put my name behind something and I have to support it, I'm the one who's going to get the call. Every single time it fails, you know what? I don't want it to fail ever, because then I make more money. If I have to go out and service it, Doesn't make me look good. It costs me money. My customer's inconvenienced. And whatever the customer thought they saved or whatever extra profit I thought I made isn't going to last. Those are dice I cannot roll with my business. And if I won't roll it with my business, I won't roll it with my own data at home. So BTRFS required. NAS rated hard drives. That means Western Digital Reds or Seagate Iron Wolves. And now Synology's gotten themselves in the market of branding their own drives. Okay, this is interesting. Talk about this for a minute. Now, first of all, thank you to Synology. I was not expecting them to send drives, but I'm going to bring this up to the camera and I want to show this to you here. Bada boom. If my camera's going to focus on it. Synology can certify these drives to give you a better peace of mind than some other manufacturer they have no control over. My understanding is that these are actually made by Toshiba, and Synology customizes the firmware to make them more efficient, I guess. But they don't have very many models to choose from. Toshiba, when it comes to buying a hard drive, most people think Seagate or Western Digital first and foremost, generally speaking. Toshiba, as a technician, not personally a big fan of the little Toshiba drives in laptops. And as far as desktops go, I don't have enough experience to have an opinion. But these pass Synology's requirements and muster enough that Synology boldly puts their own name on it. Toshiba doesn't make drives, as many drives as Seagate or Western Digital, nor do they make the varying capacities of Seagate and Western Digital. So you have limited options to choose from here, and they're quite expensive. However, if you want peace of mind and you want to make sure everything is certified, how much is that worth to you? How much would you pay for peace of mind? So me personally, just for full disclosure, I don't use Western Digital Reds. I only use Seagate Iron Wolves in my Synologies and in my customer Synologies. These were not an option for me. This is a fairly new thing, at least it's new to me, that they branded their own drives. But they are pricey. But then again, they're certified. So for some businesses, that's not negotiable. They've got to have certified drives. Then that money's not going to be a big deal to them. For a home user, it could be a deal to you. So obviously, using Synology branded drives in a Synology NAS is ideal if you can do that, if you can afford it. Now, given drive capacities today, putting 4 terabyte drives in, I mean, we can get an NVMe drive that's 8 terabytes these days, right? But for the sake of demonstration, we'll show you how to set this up using Synology drives with a 4 terabyte, with 2 4 terabyte drives. Now we can set these drives up to stripe each other. What that does is it puts the 2 drives together as one. So we have one big 8 terabyte drive, and half of the data is written to drive 1 and half the data is written to drive 2. And if either drive fails, all the data is gone. We can put this, that's called a RAID 0 or a stripe array. We can put this in a RAID 1. That's where one drive sits silently copying the other drive. So if either drive fails, you have a up to the millisecond backup of everything that's been going on. Files are deleted, they're deleted off both. Files are added, files are changed, they happen on both at the same time. Close enough to call at the same time. So that's only going to leave us with 4 terabytes if we do that. And quite frankly, I wouldn't get the point of putting a network attached storage on if all you need is 4 terabytes. You should definitely consider a minimum of 8. And for me, it's a minimum of 12. And if you can splurge and get yourself a couple of 20s, you should be good for a long time. Put it in a RAID 1. Still, it's not going to help you from a virus. It's not going to help you from a burglary, a theft, a fire, a flood. So if you have that much data, well, I hope you're backing it up to something that you can take off premises in case anything happens at that location if the data is important to you, including but not limited to buying another one of these with a matching set of drives, putting it in another location, loading the application up where they can synchronize with each other in the background. It just happens, certain days of the week or certain hours of the day, and your offsite backup is kept a mirror image of what's going on with the main machine at the other location. I mean, if you can afford it, you just have to buy it once. So today, we're going to go through setting up the Synology for the very first time, how we install the drives, we create a storage pool, we create a share, and we choose which users we want to allow on it on our network. Beyond that, we can choose if we want to give it internet access. So if we want to, we can create our own cloud storage. We can have our music and our movies available to us when we travel, playback on our phone, while this sits at home just left on. You don't need a keyboard, a mouse, or a monitor. That's the other thing. If you were to build your own NAS, you effectively would be repurposing an old PC, which is not power efficient, and it would require a monitor, keyboard, and a mouse. This, on the other hand, is a network appliance. There's no screen. All you do is plug it in to your network, plug it into power, you're done. It's 2 cables, power and network. Then you're going to access it like a website. You're going to go to its assigned IP address. You're going to log into it with your credentials, and you can put on whatever apps, do whatever you want. I'm going to show you how to do that today. In the box, there's our quick installation guide. And then finally, here in this box, we've got a network cable. We've got our power brick. We have a second network cable. We have screws if you want to screw the drives into the drive sleds. I don't recommend it. And of course, we have a power cable. That's our standard PC power cable. If you have a PC, you probably already have one of these power cables. You may not have an extra though, so they do include it, but it's very common. And one of the things I failed to mention when I talked about the 2 network cards, that you can turn on SMB multi-channel, you can have failover, you can also do something called link aggregation. And what that does is it allows both network ports to operate more or less independently. That doesn't help you as a single user with let's say you got a 1 gig network, right? And everything's going at 1 gig. But let's say you've got a small office and 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people are all trying to access the NAS at the same time. It will load balance that effectively through link aggregation so that it can move the data just as fast as though it was just one user using it. It can move the data to the user's perspective at pretty much the same speed with no degradation in the transmission time of reading or writing data, while simultaneously serving that data or receiving that data from multiple users on premises there by simply using link aggregation. But link aggregation does require that you have a router or a switch that supports it. And again, it's only beneficial if multiple users are trying to pull from or push to data to the router, and it's a lot of data. It's not a 2-second data transfer, but it's a big file that's either being written or written while somebody else is also doing a big file. They can both do it with no noticeable difference in speed that the other person is also doing it. That's pretty cool, but kind of a unique need. I don't have any clients that would benefit from that. I did experiment with it because, again, I was ignorant and I thought it was going to double the speed. But SMB multi-channel, we'll talk more about that. That was the feature I wanted, but it's a fairly new addition to the Synology operating system. And what's great about it is you just click a box. Nothing else you need to know. Now, when it comes to putting the drives in these trays, check this out. One of the reasons I think they include the screws is what if you wanted to put 2.5-inch drives in here? What if you wanted to put a couple SSDs in here or a couple of mechanicals? I mean, why not? You could totally do it. That's what the holes on the bottom are for. And the screws you would use then, and they've got to be flush head screws or this isn't going to slide in. But since we're using 3.5-inch drives, just take this piece here, grab it at the end and pull it away. You'll see it's got little nubs that stick out. And then do the same thing on this side, just pull it away. Take your hard drive, and with the connector facing, obviously, you would not put the drive in where the connector is going to go up against this big barrier. Connector's got to be open and available, so it's pretty obvious which way you've got to put this in. Just gently set it in there. Push it all the way as far as it'll go. And if you look on the side, you'll see the holes line up with the holes in the drive. And it's nice, you've got these little rubber grommets that help take down any vibrational noise, because these are spinning platters. Then grab one of these ends that we've popped out and align those nubs with the holes. With the flat edge right here, notice how one edge is tapered and one edge is flat. That flat edge goes to the front. Align the nub with the hole and simply push it and you'll hear it click. And do the same thing back here. There's one. Take the other side, same thing. Am I going too fast for you? Is this too complicated? Of course it isn't. It's really simple stuff. And it's really affordable. And look, we're locked in. No tools are required. Take the unit. You'll see the connectors down there, right? You see them at the bottom? So does this go in this way? No, because the connectors aren't at the top. So we've got to turn it this way. Just the instructions are your eyeballs. Use them. Also, if you look very closely, you'll see the handle is branded. It says Synology there on the end. And they show direction. If you look very, very carefully, it's black on black. It's hard to see. There is an arrow pointing up. I know I've got viewers who are going to go, but Carey, when you hold it this way, the arrow's pointing down. Generally, if you ever see an arrow, like on a box, it usually stands for this side up. I don't think I've ever seen a package that said this side down, but haven't gotten out much. Now, it doesn't matter which drive you put into which tray. It doesn't matter which tray you put into which slot. Make sure it's oriented in the proper direction. Find the track. Sometimes you have to wiggle it a little bit to find the track. Do not use any force. It should slide in like butter. It should go in effortlessly. If you haven't pushed those slats down enough, then that could give you some resistance into the track. So if you're feeling any resistance, if you're like, hey, I'm in the track, but it still feels like something's pushing back, you probably haven't seated that piece with the nubs completely flat. Run your finger across it after you've pushed this down, run your finger across it and make sure it's smooth. If you've got a lump in it, you probably don't have it set correctly. Also, make sure it should look properly. If this is too far forward or too far back, you might get one hole but not the other hole, and you get this weird lump. It just takes 2 seconds. It takes half a second. Just feel to make sure when you put these on, they're smooth, and then you won't have to deal with this not going into the track with anything other than grace and a glass-like smoothness. And when I push this in, you're going to hear it click. We've installed drive 1. Now, guess what? We get to do it again. Now, if you have a 4-drive array or an 8-drive array, you will repeat accordingly. Again, using Synology's hybrid arrayed configuration, SHR, in more than 2 drives, you could mix and match drive sizes. But I have to really, really emphasize, I know how tempting it is to have these old hard drives laying around. You want to repurpose them? Don't do it, man. Don't put a desktop hard drive in a NAS. You're in for a world of hurt. If you want to repurpose those old hard drives, go buy yourself a USB drive dock and use one of those drive toasters, and hook it into the USB port on your computer. Once again, I take these pieces here, those back in. Well, that one was pretty quiet. Check it, it's smooth. It does say right at the bottom what I said, pull. That's how you know how to pull this back out. If you need to replace this drive, if it were to go to bad or you wanted to upgrade it, you simply push up on that, slide it out, take these pieces off, drive comes out, new drive in, pieces go on, slide it back in. And you can do that while the unit is turned on. Okay, so there's our last one right there. We're good. Gonna go this direction. The word Synology, in case it's any easier for you, should be written going down towards the ground. If you're holding it this way where the word Synology is going up towards the sky, you have it in the wrong orientation. It's another way to tell. Don't force anything. So we pop that in, and just to make it look pretty, all this is a beauty cover. You don't have to put this on if you don't want to. All the LEDs are still labeled here, as are the USB port, and it's repeated just on the face here. It's just a nicer look, but you don't have to put this on. If you don't take any pride in appearance, that's fine with me. Okay, now we are ready to plug it in. Here's our power brick, Synology branded power brick. We're gonna plug that in. It's a barrel style connector. That's our PC power plug style of power plug, which I've got lots of. I'll use mine. You don't have to use theirs. If you're like me and you have them laying around. And then finally, we need to plug it into our network, and it doesn't matter which of these two network ports we use, or we could use them both, as I mentioned, and use SMB multi-channel. But for demonstration purposes, we're just going to use one for right now, and it doesn't matter which one. Then turn the unit on for the first time. You'll see the light starts to blink, and it has to boot up just like any other computer. Here's the thing, though. When this boots up, it has no operating system on it. You say, well, wait a minute, didn't you tell us Synology has their own operating system? Yes, I did. Well, then where is it? Well, it's got sort of the seeds on the chip on the circuit board. What it has to do is it has to plant those seeds, for lack of a better explanation, and go out to the internet and pull the current version of the operating system down. Because, you know, for all it knows, we could have this Synology for the next 10 years. And there could be a lot of new versions of the Synology DSM operating system since then. So when we're setting this up, what it's going to do is it's going to go out to the network and it's going to grab the latest version of Synology's DSM. Now to configure this, as I mentioned, there's no keyboard or mouse or monitor. We have to access this like a website. Now to do that, I've got one of my little HP mini computers right over here. You see, I've already plugged it in. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this little HP mini computer on. And we're going to boot that up right now. And we're going to go over to my HDMI input, which is the video output of that little mini computer. Let me get this box out of my way. I'll grab my keyboard and mouse for that little mini computer because I don't want to use the streaming computer and screw up my stream, okay? So I'm just trying to do this to give me some semblance of organization. Keeps my OCD happy. You'll see we got drive activity lights going on there. And let me go over to my HDMI input, which is right here. And then I'll put my camera in the corner. So I'll stick myself up here in the corner. Okay, and then what we need to do is we need to find the Synology on our network. How do we find it? Check this out. This is something also, first time I ever saw anything like this was from Synology. Now a lot of other manufacturers do it. I think they're copying Synology. Open up a browser and we'll type in find.synology.com. And it will search your local network. Even though you're on a web browser, it's searching your local network, looking for any and all Synology devices. You could have 15 of them, or you could have one. How do you access one from the other? If it's being assigned an IP address from your router automatically, and that's subject to change, You could static IP it, but just let DHCP assign it automatically and let the software find it. That's us right there, the Synology NAS. We're at 192.168.1.82. That's us, a DS224. Status, not installed. Hit the connect button. You got to agree to their license agreement and hit next. And there's their privacy statement. This is all boilerplate stuff, guys. And now it's going to go, if you look at the very top of the address bar, it's going to go to the login page for the Synology NAS. So I know it looks like you're on a website, and technically you are. It's just a website that's in your house. It's in your building. It's not out there in the cloud. Don't worry, nobody from outside of your house can access this, unless, of course, you've given them access to your Wi-Fi network or something. All right, it says, welcome, set up your Synology DS224 now. That's bossy. Hit install, and it says install DiskStation Manager. DiskStation Manager, or DSM, is the operating system running on Synology NAS devices. Box is checked. Automatically download and install the latest DSM. In this case, it shows us the latest version is 7.2.64570. This number would be subject to change. It's obviously gone out to the network to figure out what this latest number is. This is not hard-coded. So in a couple of years from now, if we were to do this again and wipe it clean and start over, it's not going to tell us 7.2.64570. It will have evolved since then, okay? Or we can provide it ourselves, but we're not going to do that. We're going to just automatically download, let the Synology take care of itself. Just get out of its way. Now it's going to warn you, whatever drives you've put in here, in order to do this, we have to erase them. It doesn't know that we just took those brand new out of a package. This is a boilerplate, one-size-fits-all statement that what you're about to do is to reinitialize or initialize disks, regardless if they had been initialized before or not. We're going to treat them as though they are brand new, and if you have any data on these drives, when you click OK, you are acknowledging you're okay with us to obliterate all data and partitions, should any exist, on the drives you've put in here. These are brand new drives and therefore have no data or partitions. You must click this box that you understand this is an irreversible action. This is a one-way street. That's what you want. Hit continue. Now it's going to download the DiskStation Manager, and it's going to create our partition. And that's just for us to boot into the operating system. That does not create our RAID array. That does not create our storage pool, because we could create a RAID 1, a RAID 0. We could have 10 storage pools or just one if we want to. It's all up to how you want to configure it. So all we're doing at this point is getting the operating system installed on the drive, because it's too big to put it on a chip on the circuit board, right? So just that little seedling is there on the circuit board. And then it goes out and gets the latest, most secure, most robust, most feature-rich, most reliable operating system, so that you're not installing an old, outdated operating system, which doesn't have all the features, all the security, or ease of use, right? Things just keep getting better. It keeps evolving and getting better. And this doesn't take very long. Keeping in mind, I have a very slow internet connection here at Studio B. And even with my slow internet connection, this doesn't take very long at all. Now, let me take a look at the chat, because I've been so excited to share all this information with you. I have not been paying attention. So while we're waiting here, Ben Laird wants to know, what's the speed of a mechanical drive in a NAS? There's no specific speed you have to use. In general, faster speed drives are more desirable, but not necessarily required. Whether it's 5,400 RPM or 7,200 RPM, the faster drives tend to be a little bit noisier and a little bit hotter, but not enough so to really make a difference, right? Generally speaking, and I didn't look at these drives before I put them in. I'm not sure what the rotational speed on these are. However, generally speaking, your bottleneck is going to be your network. The drive speed isn't going to play much into it, at least not at a network attached storage at this level. But you should be using NAS rated drives, and the speed of which is likely going to be directly related to how much you're going to pay. So if that's important to you, pay a little bit more for it. Let's see. Scrolling. Peter says hello. Mats Olof, joining us from Sweden, says he has a Synology DS720 Plus with two 8 gig drives, and he loves it. It's so easy to manage. Anybody else have a Synology drive? Check. Somebody said I didn't have sound, but my sound is clearly going out. Okay, now it's going to be rebooting here. SargeTex is talking to Gary Tatum in the chat, says BTRFS, or the B-tree file system, removes duplicate data from the disk directly, while ext4 cannot do that. Again, all you have to ask yourself is which one is newer? Is ext4 newer than BTRFS? If it's newer, that means it's more advanced, it's more evolved, it's more feature rich, it's probably faster, more efficient, and more reliable. That's generally the rule of things in tech, unless something is experimental or beta. Patrick Rusaw's got a birthday today. Hey, happy birthday to our friend Patrick Rusaw out there in, in Philadelphia? There's Bill Wickens joining us. Bill Wickens says, hi, Carey and Buster. Thank you. I'm having fun checking and testing various ISOs. It's a joy to have enough storage and RAM without having to delete and start over. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Bill Wickens received one of the free PCs. And much thanks to our friend Peter Laycock for making that possible. And we're glad to hear he's enjoying it. I always love to hear back from people that we send items to, that they're, how they like it. Usually no news is good news, but it sure does feel good to get confirmation. So the Synology NAS right now is not available for sale yet. I think they told me, let me just double check. Oh, $20 comes in from Gary Tatum via PayPal. He says, I want you to know how great it is to be watching again. I just got out of the hospital from a heart attack. I'm doing fine now, and I hope to see many more. Oh my gosh, well, we're glad you're doing well and feeling better. Thank you so much for contributing, and hopefully we can keep you distracted a little bit here and keep that blood pressure down. Glad to hear you're back home. Hospitals are not fun places. Alan Lindos contributed a $7.77 Amazon gift card. It said it's his late fee. Gilbert contributes a $25 Amazon gift card. Thank you, Gilbert. Our friend Peter Laycock with an Amazon gift card. He said, enjoy the Amazon gift card for the show. Your friend Buster. $15 from Nick Caffrey. He says, my Saturday tech fix with Carey. Here's a little contribution to the Gatorade Fund. Thank you, Nick. And I think I have, what?
August 9th is the...
I thought it was. Okay, so as of the official launch date for this product is in 5 days from today, August the 9th. So the previous model, the one that I have, the DS220, is still available, but I mean, for a few more dollars, why not get the latest and greatest? It's not a massive difference in price for me, enough to justify buying the older model. But, it's up to you. Now, you'll see it says, welcome to DSM 7.2. And let me go full screen over here. Okay, now I can see it. This is what the operating system looks like now that it's installed and it's booted to it. This is the next generation data management. Begins here. We can click to see what's new if we want to see what the latest upgrades from, well, let me this HP thing. Okay, so this is Disk Manager 7.1 that it's taking us to, not 7.2. But just a lot of information here and things that they've enhanced, new features they've added. You could certainly spend a lot of time. There's a lot of information in here. Surveillance station is the thing for video cameras to record. You could save a lot of money by doing this all yourself, okay, by using surveillance station instead of buying proprietary equipment and CCTV systems. This is way more customizable and useful. And this would be like if you wanted to do a manual install. They even have a tool here on the Synology website called the NAS selector. So if you're not quite sure which NAS is right for you, you just answer questions. Are you a home or small office, or are you a business or an enterprise? Okay, I'm a home or small office. So you can click that. And it says, which applications are you wanting to run on your storage? Do you want to run file server and synchronization? Do you want data backup? Do you want a multimedia hub? Maybe you want all of them. Select whatever ones apply, or the top 3. Select one here and hit next. How many users are going to be connecting to it? Yeah, it's just home, it's 1 to 5, let's say, or maybe it's a small business, there's 6 to 10. Do you need image recognition? What did I just say? Image recognition? Yes. DSM has artificial intelligence, you know, the buzzword AI. So if you're like, find me the pictures that I've got on my NAS of a horse. I don't know where it is. I've got 20 years of photos, all digitized. I'm pretty good at labeling and putting them in folders, but now I got so many folders, I'm not sure which folder it's in. So I did my best with file name, descriptive file names. Where I am, the date, what's it a picture of? You don't have to do that anymore. Synology can scan through your photos. And don't worry, it's not laughing at your photography skills. It's not judging. Find me a picture of cars. Where's the photo album I have of the car show? If you've got that many photos and you're not so OCD as me with regards to your labeling, you can put all your photos on what is essentially a photo app, a digital photo app on Synology that can use AI. And not only can you then see these photos on your phone, maybe you're on a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean and you've got an internet connection, right? Because they have Starlink and stuff these days. And you're talking up a new friend that you met on the cruise ship. And you're like, oh, did you ever go to this place? Oh yeah, I went there. In fact, here, let me pull up my pictures of it. And all your pictures on your Synology at home in your photo station. For your DiskStation, they have the photo app. You can, oh man, I've got like 1 million photos. How am I going to find this? You just use the AI search to say, show me photos of whatever the subject is I'm looking for. Cool is that? So again, it might be a feature some of you never use. It might be a feature you wonder how you ever lived without. And that's just a part of what this NAS can do. And then it goes on to ask you other questions. Do you want, yes, I want to use AI, right? So it'll show you the NASs that support that. And it says, based on how you answered your questions that we just asked, these would be the NASs that we'd recommend, depending on how much actual capacity you need. And you'll see it starts with the DS220. Doesn't that look familiar? That's because this is the new version of the DS220 called the DS224. And they do have the little plus symbol, so that is a part of the name, DS220 Plus, and in this case, the DS224 Plus. Okay, so not rocket science, everything's pretty obvious, pretty straightforward. But let me get back to our setup. So we're back at the main screen, and just know there's a lot of resources at the Synology website. I don't have time to go through it all right now, but if you want to learn more, you could spend hours there and increase your understanding and knowledge, and including, you might learn that if you already have a Synology NAS, that it can do things you weren't aware it could do. So it might be worth it to check out what Synology has on their website there to introduce you to concepts that your NAS is capable of doing. Or if there's something really important you want your NAS to do, and you want to make sure the Synology NAS you buy is one that's going to do that, spending a few minutes there costs you nothing so that you can make the decision that's best for you. All right, so let's set this bad boy up. Here we go. We'll start. Now, we have to give the device a name. Now, I have typically, because my customers always save their data on a server, I just call the Synology NAS a server, even though it's really not a server. But it's an easy, how else do you describe it, right, as an average person? So it's a server. Okay, we have to give it an administrator account. This is the account that can log in and make changes to security and updates and configuration. You don't want anybody willy-nilly just getting in there and making changes. So back in the day, you'd use admin, right? You'd say admin. That's insecure now. Every hacker in the world knows the default administrator account is admin. So why would you want to make it easy for hackers? So Synology is going to put their foot down if you try and use that. And they're going to say, It's a Jurassic Park reference. So I'm going to say the account is called Carey. All right. And there's nothing on the NAS or on my network or any stranger looking at information online, looking at the data flowing, would know that that's me, okay? Or would have any idea that this NAS is me and that would be the login name. Obviously, if I call my Wi-Fi network Carey and I call my Synology Carey, any hacker driving by could put 2 and 2 together, okay? So don't make it easy on the hackers. Now, for a password, Synology's put their foot down on this as well, because too many people will type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then they end up getting hacked. They end up getting their data erased or encrypted or held ransomware. So Synology is now saying, we're not going to let you be so disrespectful to your own data because it's making us look bad in the news. When the end users are too lazy or too ignorant, or they are disconnected from society or from reality, they're disconnected from reality, where they're like, well, that's never going to happen to me. And they don't take security seriously. And a bunch of people all do the same thing. And then they get infected with something, their data gets corrupted through a virus, and they cry. They cry really, really loud, and they go to the news station and they go, meh, meh, when they caused it themselves. Synology's the bad guy. They sold me a bad product. No, you didn't lock your doors, okay? I'm sorry that we live in a society where it's your responsibility to lock your door. We should not have to lock our doors. People should know, don't take something that's not yours. But as much as what it should be doesn't change what it is. And since so many people were not taking password security seriously enough, it was having an end result of giving some, likely like a black eye to Synology, right? When somebody drives their Tesla off a cliff, they go, oh, it's the Tesla. No, it was the driver. So instead of finger pointing and saying it was you, no, it was you, Synology says, no, you must meet these basic minimum security requirements. You must. Thank you, Synology. As a computer technician, I don't like getting those calls from my clients who have a self-inflicted problem because they decided not to take their password seriously. And now they're crying and whining, and it's an emergency. Stop everything you're doing, Carey. Get over here right now and fix this. I hope they had a backup. One great step to avoiding that stressful situation is to take your security seriously. Don't give everything the same password. And when you set your password, write it down somewhere or use something like RoboForm. Find a secure way, because when you set this up and you just make something up off the top of your head, you are not going to remember it. And 3 months from now, when you want to log into it, you're going to say, oh, Gosh darn it, Synology made me set a secure password and now I can't even hack myself. That was the point. At the very least, get a pen and paper and just make a note to yourself, okay? You can use a paper clip and use a reset button to reset the Synology without losing the data, but this is basic security, and if you don't want to do it, please don't buy a NAS. Again, I guess I'm a terrible computer technician. I should encourage people to create situations that were totally avoidable so I can bill you $125 an hour to undo the mess that you allowed to happen. But it's just so easy. It's so avoidable. So as a technician out in the field dealing with the average customers who don't take this seriously until it affects them, and then it's too late, I want to thank Synology for enforcing these rules. Hallelujah. Okay, so now we're going to put a password in here. And it's going to judge the strength of our password here. So I'm going to type in, for now, I'll say, this is my password. Passwords don't have to be one word. They can be a whole sentence. And you'll see, despite how long that password is, Synology says, that's just too weak. Okay. What if I typed in this with a capital T and a number 1 for the I? Is with a number 1 and a lowercase s, my PASSWORD. Oh, it seemed like we were doing good for a while there. It's saying, you simple-minded, thoroughly optimistic person, you don't realize just how clever and how determined the bad guys on the internet are out to get you, that you think that that is a good password. It is not. So what is a good password? A good password, generally speaking, is going to be a combination of uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols, and have it at least 8 characters long, but preferably 12 to 16. You say, well, how am I ever going to remember that? Well, you can be clever. You can replace letters with symbols, like you can replace the letter H with a hashtag. You can replace the letter I, the number 1, or an exclamation point. You can capitalize every other letter. Obviously, the more difficult it is for you to enter, the harder it's going to be for a hacker to crack it. The easier it is for you, the easier it is for them. So let me think about this. What do I want to put in here? I got to think of something clever. We'll do the number 5 with the letter S, and then YNOLOGY. That one I typed. So that right there has already gotten better. See, it looks like it says Synology, but it's a number 5. And then I'll type exclamation point. No, I'll type at Carey exclamation point. Okay. I just made this up. This is not a password I've ever used before. What are the odds I'm going to remember this in 5 minutes? Make a note. Get a piece of paper. Here, look how easy this is. Get a Post-it note. Grab a pen. So my account is Carey, all lowercase, and my password is the number 5, YNOLOGY, at Carey, Carey, all lowercase. Upper and lowercase matter on passwords. And then if you want, stick it to the darn thing, okay? Whatever you do, don't be like, oh, I'll remember it. No, you won't. Unless it's a password you use all the time, in which case, when the bad thing happens, it's your fault because you couldn't be bothered, okay? Just remember, when the bad thing happens because you are exercising bad password practices, you caused it to yourself, and it was only up to you to prevent it from happening. Nobody else can prevent it from happening to you except you. And if you can't be bothered, the hackers love you for making their job easy, okay? And so it just takes a minute to make the note. Now we have to enter that password again, just to make sure. Oh, and there's an exclamation point at the end. I got to add that. Oh, did I leave out the G?
Yeah.
No, I did. Thank you for noticing. The screen's really far away from me, so Synology. Actually, it's a 5 Synology. Carey exclamation. I think we're good. Everything matches. Everything's happy. Password strength requirement must include exclude name and description of user from password. Oh, it doesn't like me using that login name. I love that Synology does. I know some of you are like, oh, what a pain. They're helping you. They're forcing you to do the right thing that you can't be bothered to do, that you're going to turn around and blame them for when you get yourself hacked, when your data gets ransomware. I can't emphasize this. This will be your fault. So thank you to Synology for really, really forcing this on people because they need it desperately. All right, so let's do, we'll keep that the same. What if I just type that again? Can I do it again? Yes, well, yeah. Let's do it with a capital S. SYN at Syno exclamation. How about that? SYNO exclamation. Okay, does it like that? Oh, by Jove, I think we've got it. So not to confuse myself, we'll get rid of that piece of paper. We're going to get the pen out and we're going to write that down. So remember, it's Carey. It's 5 YNOLOGY at capital SYNO exclamation. All right, so I've got it written down. Obviously, when you're setting this up, you don't broadcast it on a live stream. Right? But for demonstration purposes, I want you to be very aware of how critical this step is and that you should not be dismissing it so casually. Not anymore. This isn't the old days anymore. You drop your guard for a second. Don't be surprised when you have an unwanted visitor that's leaving damage or holding your data for ransom, okay? Only one that can prevent it. Now, of course, you're using, like in this case, Microsoft Edge, you can have it save the password for you. I like to use a program called RoboForm. You know what else I like? A Post-it note. So I'm gonna just say save and turn on for now. Sure, why not? Automatically install important DSM and package updates only. Automatically install the latest DSM and package updates. Yes. I want the package updates too. For all those packages, those apps you're going to put on, it doesn't do you any good to update the operating system only to find out that that particular package or app you've installed no longer works without an update to be compatible with the new update to the operating system. So I want any app updates and DSM updates to happen without my interaction. I want it to happen on its own. If you're a control freak, you can have it just notify you when an update's available and you can apply the update yourself. I don't know why anybody would pick that unless you just don't have a lot going on in your life. But I would strongly encourage you to let it automatically update, and it will do that likely faster than you will and give you the latest features sooner and keep you more secure sooner than when you get around to it. But it's yours, it's your life, it's your data, so you do what you want. Next, create a Synology account. Okay, so here's the thing. If we create a Synology account, it's free. We can then enable access to the NAS through the Synology portal. I don't want to do that, but you can if you want to. So for, if you already have an account from Synology, you can use your current account. There's a lot of benefits. Like I said, it doesn't cost you anything, but for the sake of, we've got a lot to get through on this video, I'm not going to go through that today. So we're going to skip this for right now, but you can come back and do it another time. There are advantages to doing this. This isn't like a Microsoft account, but Mostly if you want to access your NAS from outside of the building, if you want to securely be able to access your data when you travel, this is going to make your life so much easier. If you're never intending to do that, if you only want access in the building on premises, then not a whole lot of advantage to having this, but it also wouldn't hurt you either. But you can learn more about that. Maybe we'll make a video on that in the future, but we're going to skip it for now. You can opt in for a better user experience. This is very common practice where companies want your permission that anytime there's a problem or an issue, that it will send that data to their technicians anonymously, so that if they see a pattern of problems occurring after an update or with a particular app, you don't have to reach out to them and let them know. They'll already be aware of it based on the number of logs that are being sent from failures. But you're not required to do this. Some people, again, it's anonymous. It's not using much of your bandwidth. It's only sending a few bytes when and if something happens. And it sort of, if it's happening to you, it's probably happening to other people. And it makes the folks at Synology aware that they have a problem, and they can address it through an update where you don't even have to call support. So that's the benefit of you doing that, right? You become another piece of data that they can use to determine and isolate where the problem is and fix it without having to deal with an endless number of support requests. So here it's device analytics, and you can agree to it or not agree with it. It's fully voluntary. So I'm going to agree to it because why wouldn't I? But if you're majorly into privacy and stuff like that, and you don't trust that that's all they're doing, I don't know. I mean, that's on you, but it's your choice either way. You're not obligated one way or the other. Craig Casabona with a $5 super chat. Just saw that. Thank you, Craig. Okay, so this just sets up our Synology operating system. It says you can securely access and share files from anywhere using Synology Drive Server, Synology Office, and Synology Photos. Okay, if you want to do that, which a lot of people do, this pops up to say, here's where you need to go to do that, to install. I don't want to do that. I can say no thanks, or I could say not right now, remind me later. I don't want that myself. I'm going to say no thanks, and I know how to go get it if I want it. Anyway, registering is important for warranty. Okay, so if you want warranty plus, you register the device, which means you're going to give them your name, your address, the serial number of your unit. And that way, if you have any warranty concerns, you're already, you're going to have to fill this information out if you need to send the unit back for a repair. Now, I have never, ever had to send a Synology unit back for repair, but things happen. Maybe you've spilled something on it. Maybe the cat knocked it over. Maybe there was a power spike from a storm. Now you want to send it in for repair. In order for them to receive it from you, they have to know where to send the repair. So they're going to have to know your name and your address. So anyway, you can get all that out of the way and extend the warranty for free by filling out the free registration. So you can do that, you can dismiss that, or you can skip it for now. It'll remind you later. So I'm going to dismiss that because this is a demo unit anyway. You can enable two-factor authentication. So now instead of just needing the right name and the right password, that's no longer enough to get in here and make changes. If you want to enable two-factor authentication, then it can include a hardware key for an app you can put on your phone, or a one-time sign-in verification code that would usually tie into an email address or a smartphone. Once again, I'm not going to do this, but if you're really security conscious, you don't see a downside to turning this on. And if you have very important stuff on there and you want to take it very seriously, enabling two-factor authentication is way, way more secure, and it doesn't cost you anything. For me right now, I'm going to say no thanks, we're fine. Okay, now there's something called adaptive multi-factor authentication. What that is it's a way to, if somebody keeps failing the login, they're getting the credentials wrong. And let's say it's you because you didn't write it down, or you did write it down, but you misplaced the paper, and now you can't remember. And now it looks like somebody's trying to break into your NAS when in fact it's you. You could put your email address in here, okay? And then it can email you to verify you're not somebody breaking in, that you've locked yourself out. How embarrassing for you. I strongly recommend you put your email address in here, okay? I'm not going to do that today because, again, I wouldn't do it in front of a live audience worldwide, but certainly put your email address in here as a backup form of being able to verify that you're trying to break into your own system because you've forgotten your own password. Shame on you. But you absolutely should put your password, put your email address in here, and you should absolutely never need to use it. Okay? But at least if you do, that little embarrassment will be your little secret, okay? You won't be calling me for help. You can help yourself if you ever do that, just by putting your email address in now. So I'm going to not do that for right now. And they are saying you really should. But again, because we are live and because I'm not setting this up for real, I'm advising you to do it. But I'm not going to do it because there's no point in me doing this for a video. Okay, we have set up the operating system, and now we need to create a storage pool. We still haven't done anything with the drives yet. I've spent more time explaining what these things are and why to justify why it's worth your time to do them than it actually takes to just do it. This is 30 seconds that we've now been on for 20 minutes, okay? But I want you to understand the reasoning and the logic behind it. So let's start right here. It says create a storage pool and a volume. Create a storage pool and volume to start installing packages and start sharing files on your Synology NAS. Enable now. And this guide walks you through this entire process. It says, start to create Synology storage pools and volumes. Before data can be stored on your Synology NAS, please create at least one volume and one storage pool. A storage pool is created through the aggregation of one or more hard drives, and a volume is created on a storage pool. This is where all your data is going to go. Think of volumes as partitions, and think of the storage pool as the drive itself. Because we're using multiple drives to replicate or fool the computer into thinking it's one larger drive, you get what I'm saying? That's creating the storage pool. Creating the storage pool is combining those drives, whether you want RAID 0, RAID 1, and you combine their space or create their redundancy, whatever it is that you're picking. Then you have to put a volume on it, which is like a partition. You want one big partition, or do you want to separate it and put different partitions with different security? Maybe you have an office and you don't want your employees to see other employees' payroll, but you need the HR person to have access. So you could separate those out, giving only requiring credentials to access that volume. For me personally, I keep it simple. I make one big volume out of the drives. In this case, we're going to do a RAID 1 array where one drive mirrors the other drive because it's only a 2-drive array. And I will create one big volume, which is going to be the space of one drive in a RAID 1. And that will be our share. So I'll hit start. So it says RAID is a storage virtualization technology that aggregates multiple drives into a storage pool. Different RAID types provide different levels of performance, storage capacity, and reliability. And there's our explanation of the RAID type of Synology hybrid RAID. We also have basic, and we have JBOD, just a bunch of disks. Okay, so what we want is the default here, Synology hybrid RAID. And then we'll hit next. What drives do you want to use? Well, I want to use, please select at least one drive to create a storage pool Synology hybrid RAID. I guess that's not what I wanted. Let me go back. Using basic RAID settings, just to show you the difference here. Hold on, now I'm confused. Please select one drive, and it only shows one. Here's my other one. It should show me drive 1 and drive 2. Now I'm confused. This is not what I was expecting. Minimum number of drives required is you need at least one. Drive fault, there's no drive fault tolerance on that. Definitely want to use SHR for the reasons I mentioned. Minimum number of drives, 1. When we hit next, it should show us drive 1 and drive 2. How come I don't see drive 1? I'm wondering if I don't have drive 1 seated all the way in, or if we have a bad drive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step around here, and the drives do say, they used to say 1 and 2 to let us know which one is drive 1 and which one is drive 2. I'm just looking at this NAS, and I want to share this lesson with you because I think it's really important. If I turn it this way, in fact, let me go to, let me make the screen bigger here. This is a very critical real life lesson because I did not do this on purpose. It's very easy to make this mistake because I wasn't paying enough attention. And it's very simple and very easy to avoid simply by paying attention. So let me go back over to full screen on camera 1 here. I don't know how well you can see. If I turn this on an angle, this drive right here is sticking out further than this drive right here. Can you tell that that's sticking out? So I did not seat it all the way down. And this will work with one drive. And I do not have to turn this off. Watch, all I have to do is push it all the way in. Now, you'll notice the disk 1 light is not on. See, the green light here is for disk 2. I should also have a green light here on disk 1, and I should have been paying attention to that, and I didn't. So not only did I not pay attention to not pushing that drive all the way in, I further did not pay attention of looking at any of these lights until just now. See that light came on? That means it's initialized and it's now running disk 1 and disk 2. Those lights are very important. That's why I don't like RGB. It doesn't convey any information. It's a waste of time. It's an unnecessary distraction. That's all I had to do. Okay, now, put myself back in the corner. And look, if that's a mistake I can do, it's clearly a mistake you can do. So learn from my mistakes so you can make different mistakes. You don't have to make the same mistakes. You can make your own. Come up with your own. The original. All right, now, let me go back again. And we'll hit next. No, go back. Start. Next. Might have to back out of this entirely now. Surprised. Thought it would automatically shift. Still only seeing the one drive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. Oh, probably can't see that, can you? Now you'll be able to see it. And even though this is probably overkill, I'm going to just restart the NAS. See right here? Restart. Sure you want to restart? Yes. And let's let it go ahead and reboot with both drives properly seated, which is what I was supposed to do from the get-go. Very simple mistake to make. And the information was right in front of me the whole time between the LED not being on and just physically looking. You could see that drive wasn't put all the way in. I swear to you, I did not do that on purpose. But that's why we do these videos live, because it would be easy for a YouTube content creator to completely edit that out, and then you would not know to be aware of it. So when I do these live and unscripted and unrehearsed, it's the best way that I can emulate you doing it yourself by being here with me in real time. So you have a real idea of how long this takes. By the way, so far, none of this has taken a lot of time. It's my explanations that are taking a lot of time. You can see the, as close as we can get the hands on to putting the drives in the sleds and getting the sleds installed into the tracks, things to watch out for there, the reason for those LEDs, why they're so important. And it's giving us real world examples that no emulation and no simulation can ever really give us that level of reality. And that's why I make these videos this way, because this is how life actually is. We don't get to edit our life in post-production and put it together all highly polished and take out all the mistakes. And by the way, what kind of a boring life would that be anyway? All right, so we got to sign in again. So what was it? Carey. Remember we wrote this down. Do you remember what it was? I do. Now, since we've rebooted now, let's go to Create Now, Start, Synology Hybrid RAID, next. Hey, we have 2 drives now. I am so smart, aren't I? And we want both drives. Yes and yes. But this is if you had a 4-drive Synology, you could create one storage pool with 2 of the drives and another storage pool with the other 2 drives if you wanted to. Or one storage pool with 3 drives and one storage pool with 1. Again, I'm somebody, I will take all the drives and combine them either into a RAID 0 or a RAID 1 or a RAID 5. Generally speaking, if I only have 2 drives, I want a RAID 1 mirror. And if I have 3 drives or more, I want a RAID 5 or RAID 6, depending on how many drives I have. I never use RAID 0 because there's no point in high performance when our bottleneck is our network, and it increases if one drive fails, we lose all the data. There's no redundancy there. So it kind of defeats the whole point of having a NAS if you're going to do that, in my opinion. So now I can go to the next step. It says performing a drive check can automatically reconfigure a drive, thereby reducing the risk of data access errors. Do you want to perform the drive check? Look, if they're brand new drives, I strongly recommend it. In most cases, you're never going to have a problem, but it can take a while. Since we're live, I'm going to just bypass this for now. Now it says for the storage pool, your total capacity is going to be the size of one of the drives, and the other drive is going to remain hidden. So your total capacity, if you want to use it all, on these 4 terabyte drives, you get a total of 3,715 gigs, which is 4,000 gigabytes. Gigabytes. It's the same amount of space. Too many enthusiasts out there, even I've seen people that write for tech websites, think they're losing space after they format a drive because they don't understand how the math works. If you assume 1,000 is 1,024, then obviously you can, if you divided that by 4,000, you'd get a lower number than 4,000, right? Versus if you thought 1,000 was 1,000, and the bigger the drive is, the bigger that number discrepancy is, and people get really upset. Where did my space go? It's a brand new drive. It's a 25 terabyte drive. Not that that exists, but you know. And it says a big chunk of it's missing. It's just doing the math differently. It's the same thing. How dare you give me 6 when I had half a dozen? That's what you sound like when you make these outrageous claims of wrongful nature, because you're not understanding the math. And it's not your fault. The industry does this. Hard drive manufacturers like to report one way. Operating systems like to report another way. Wouldn't it be great if we could all agree? They have their reasons. It is what it is. But whether you have 6 or a half dozen, you have the same amount. And whether this is reported in as 3,715 gigabytes or at 4,000 gigabytes, it's the same number. So don't freak out. All right, so we want to use the available capacity. So I hit next, just leaving, maximum. We'll just hit the max button there. That's going to give me the maximum size. And then I can hit next. Now, do we want ext4? No. We want Butterfuss. We want BTRFS. We want the B-tree file system. Yes, please. Thank you. If you're not using the B-tree file system, you shouldn't even bother having a NAS. That's my opinion as a professional computer technician. Take that for whatever it's worth. Next, configuring encryption. Enabling encryption. Encrypting a volume helps protect your data from unauthorized access in case your device is lost or stolen. All data stored on the volume, including package data and LUNs, will be protected. Now, if you want to encrypt the volume, that means it's going to take a little more processor and RAM when you want to read or write data, because it's got to encrypt it and decrypt it on the fly. But you have that peace of mind that it's secure at a little expense of performance, right? But hey, it's really insignificant as far as I'm concerned. Now, if you are experiencing a level of slowness on your NAS and you've tried everything, you could turn encryption off, but I wouldn't. I think it's worth the slight performance penalty to have that peace of mind. But at the end of the day, it's your choice. It's not costing you anything. So I want encryption on. Now, when we turn on encryption, we have to set a password for that as well. And that's why if somebody were to steal this, it wouldn't do them any good unless they had the password. And if you were foolish enough to put your password as 123456, well, guess what? They're just going to decrypt it super easy. You might as well have not even used it. Now, because I don't want to go through this hassle, just go back. I'm going to turn this off for right now. But whether or not you choose to do that, that's your decision to make. So this is a summary of our configuration. We've got a Synology hybrid RAID type using the SATA hard drives, using drive 1 and drive 2, with an estimated capacity of 3,715 gigabytes. That's giving us a total of 3,715 using the BTRFS file system. We hit apply. It's going to say, look, we're wiping these drives out. Where have I heard this before? Yeah. We're good with it. It's new. Yes. And now it's going to create that storage pool for us. And this happens relatively quickly. Looking in the chat here, see what I'm missing. John Paul Bacon wants to know if you have 3 or more drives, can you do a RAID 10? So RAID 10 is a RAID 1 and a RAID 0. So I want you to think about this. If I said you could have 2 drives in a striped performance array where they act as one, or you could have 2 drives where one mirrors the other, couldn't you set up one striping the other and then the other 2 mirroring those 2? So you'd have both a RAID 0 and a RAID 1. But RAID 01 doesn't sound as clever as RAID 10, does it? So a RAID 10 is a RAID 1 and a RAID 0, but clearly you'd have to have 4 drives for that. I can't see how you could do that with 3 drives. You'd need 4 drives minimum. Once again, it's something I don't advise because effectively you're reducing the amount of drive space available to you than if you were to set it up as a RAID 5, and there won't be any performance improvement because you're on a gigabit LAN. And no matter how fast your drives are spooling up the data, that 1 gig LAN port is going to be your bottleneck. And you'd be much better off, in my opinion, simply using a RAID 5 array so you have the total storage space of 3 of those 4 drives. But you could also do RAID 5 with 3 drives or more. With RAID 1 plus 0, you need 4 drives. Unless I'm missing something, that's how I believe that works. All right, now, this is a summary of everything we've done. The volume is healthy. We're using 77 megabytes on the DSM. That's what's taking up on the hard drive, right? You need room for the operating system. We can have notification settings set up to have the Synology email us whenever there's an issue or an alert, an update, an attempted break-in, a drive failing smart testing. We could have it do RAID scrubbing and report it to us how the RAID scrubbing, you should do that like at least once every few months. I usually set it up to go monthly. And I usually have it set up to go, 2 o'clock in the morning, one day a month. And you can schedule the data scrubbing and do all that and set it up to notify you when it happens. And since I'm not setting that up now, I can always go back later in the control panel and enable that later. Our volume. So now here's the thing. Let me get back over to camera 1 so I can explain this. What we've done now is we've configured the 2 drives in a RAID 1 effectively. It's a RAID 1 array. We have using all the utilized space as a large partition, what they're calling a storage pool. Now, I need to put a folder to share on the network on this otherwise bare empty hard drive. As it sits right now, there's nothing for us to access. We have to create a share. The drive itself is not shareable, but the folders on the drive are. So what I like to do is just make one big folder, use the entirety of the drive up on it. Then that becomes my share point that I can share over my network, or if I want to share it, over the internet, whatever like that, I can do that. So let me show you how I do it. Let's go back over to screen here. And let's see what it says. Options for like a hot spare, there's global settings here. I want to go to close this out. I'm going to show you a few things. Right here is our main desktop for the Synology, okay? It's got wallpaper like an operating system has. This is our package center. This is where you get apps. This is like the Google Play Store or the Apple Store, okay? But it's Synology's version of that. And there's a ton of different apps you can download to do all kinds of stuff that we don't have time to get into today. It's all located in there. Your control panel, that's where you're going to set who's allowed to access it, what are your shares, any networking specifics, updates to the operating system. We can verify that that's up to date, but it should be anyway, because we've checked the box for it to just keep itself updated. We can back up our whole Synology config, put that onto an external drive somewhere so we don't have to set up all the customization again. We can completely system reset this if we're selling it. We want to securely erase and reset everything. Then we have a whole recovery area here. So depending on whether you're trying to destroy it, or you're trying to recover it, you're going to find all of these features and more in the control panel. And it goes down this whole side of different areas in the control panel, your notifications, hardware and power information. Down here on the bottom right corner, you'll see we've got just the widgets running with our CPU and RAM resources, as well as the overall health of the Synology and the storage pool. So now to create a shared folder, I want to go to the file station. And in the file station, it tells us you don't have a shared folder on here. You can't use it without a shared folder. Okay, we want to definitely be able to use this as a shared folder. So we're going to click OK. And it takes us right where we need to be to create a shared folder. I'm going to call the shared folder public. You don't have to put a description in if you don't want to. Location, we only have one location on this little NAS. Do we want to hide it? No. Do we want to hide subfolders? No. We want to enable the recycle bin, so when you delete stuff off the NAS, it'll go into the recycle bin on the NAS. Yes, that's a pretty smart thing to do. It will take up reserve some space on the drive you won't be able to use, or your trash can to be able to hold stuff you might want to retrieve later. Next, enable additional security measure. So you can encrypt this particular folder, just like we could encrypt the entire storage pool. We can encrypt individual folders as well using different encryptions, so that one password gets you into the share, a different password gets you into a different share. And if either share, if the NAS were to be stolen and plugged in somewhere else, without those passwords, they wouldn't access any data on the drives. I'm going to skip this for right now because I don't want to go through it all, but it's there for you if you want it. Here you can configure advanced settings like enable data checksum for advanced data integrity. Yes, yes, please. And file self-healing and data scrubbing are available to ensure data enable file correction. Enable shared folder quota. We don't need a quota, so we can hit next. And then this is our summary, right? It just wants to confirm this is what you've told me you want to do. Right now, the recycle bin can only be accessed by administrators. So if one of the users on the network deletes something by mistake, they'll have to ask an administrator to log in here go to the file station and drag it out of the recycle bin. You don't have to know any code. You just literally drop and drag it out of there. But you have to be an administrator to do that. Next, and it's creating that. And now, who do I want to allow access? Well, I want anybody to have access. So I want to have a guest access. And this is turned off by default for security reasons. But I absolutely want anybody on my home network to be able to access my public share. In a business, I might not want them. But in my home, yeah, if you're on my network, there's nothing on there I'm hiding from you. So to turn on guest network, we would say local users, hit apply here for a minute. Under edit, again, we can make changes after the fact. Turn this guest access on, and I'm trying to remember how I do that. Then there's advanced permissions here. And then NFS permissions, which, you know, we don't need that ourselves, but depending on the kind of network you have. If you want your Synology NAS to be discoverable on your network, when you go to your network places or the network icon on your operating system on Windows, you want to make sure WS Discovery is turned on. That's under, if I remember correctly, under Network. And under, say, under Network Interface, Traffic Control. Moved. I thought it was here under Network. What if I can search for it? WS. Services. SMB settings. Here we go. So for SMB settings, we want to make sure that WS Discovery is turned on. Synology used to have this off by default, when people would say, well, I can access my Synology if I manually put in its name or IP address, but why doesn't it appear in my network places? And it's because you had to check this box. Now Synology is turning that on by default. So be aware of that in case you want that off. And then if you want to set up FTP or rsync or do any other stuff, that's all here under the file services section of the control panel. I was in the network section, and that's why I wasn't finding. So I'll hit apply. It didn't change anything. So back here for a second. This is our public folder that we created. Inside, there's a hidden folder called recycle. That's our recycle bin. It's essentially a folder called #recycle. Anytime something on the NAS is deleted, it goes into this folder. As far as the user is concerned, it's deleted. You need to empty this manually, or you need to set up a schedule where it empties automatically. Otherwise, by just turning this on and not doing anything else, it will eventually consume all of your space. If you never empty the trash will just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So you either need to remember to empty it, or you can set up a rule and schedule it to empty every 30 days or whatever. Where is that? It's probably under, let's see if I click on the recycle bin. Okay, so the way you have to get at that would be getting into the storage manager. Now, I like having the storage manager out here on the desktop. If I go up here to this little icon in the top left, you'll see I've got this. Where did it go? Storage manager. I go in here a lot. So I would want this dragged out to my desktop. So that way I don't have to go up here every time. Figure out how to close this icon. There I go. And I'm just going to close this, and you'll see I dragged it out here. So now it's on my desktop, right? Did I do that too quickly? Now we have storage. I would like Synology to put this out here by default, but it's no big deal. You drag it out and it'll stay out. And when I click once on it, this gives us any Synology NASs it finds on the network, the name of it, the number of drives that it's recognized. In this case, our volume name under the volume itself. Is that where it is? No, it's not there. We have information about our drives. And once again, we can schedule drive checking, smart drive status, and have it email us the results. Like you could do that. I would do it every 30 days. Just do a nice long extended smart test and let it do it at night because it can take a while. And give you peace of mind. It'll send you a notification, an email. It says we ran the smart test on the drives you told us to run it on, and here's the results of drive 1 and drive 2, or whatever drives you selected to run that on. So, all right, so it's not storage manager that I want to be in here. Be under file station. And let's see. Trying to remember where the empty recycle bin option is. I thought it was under the storage. Services folder. Somewhere in here, I want to go to the user settings and I want to enable the guest account. Users and groups, that's what I'm looking for. Right here, you'll see the guest account is deactivated and the default admin account is deactivated. So I'll go to guest, double click that. And it says deactivate this account, just uncheck that box. That's it, hit save. Then I want to go back to, file services? Stumble my way around a little bit. Is it the storage manager under the volume? Storage pool. Again, we can set up a schedule for data scrubbing. That's just good maintenance there. Interested in that. Give me a second as I stumble around here. It's probably already in it. Just overlooked it. Okay, that's file station. It's not the file station it's going to be in the control panel under file services. No. Again, we can set domain and LDAP. There's a lot of different options through here. We don't, obviously can't go through all of it today. We've already been on over 2 hours going through just the basics of this stuff. You can see how this can keep you pretty occupied for a while. And the reason I can't remember where some of the stuff is once I've set it up, I generally don't ever have to go back and change it for a long time. So I'm sure I probably walked right by it several times. Pretty sure it's going to be in here. It's a shared folder. Edit. Advanced permissions. Permissions. Here we go. Guest. I want the guest to have access to this share. So even though the guest account was disabled and I enabled it, that only enables the account. It doesn't give it any permission to do anything. So I have to be specific with what I want the guest account to be able to access. And because I only have one share, it's pretty straightforward, right? I want to share that. So to turn that on, I should be able to, you'll see the admin account has read and write access. Carey, the admin, has read and write access. And I want the guest account to have read and write access. I'm going to just check read and write, and hit save. And that applies to the public folder only. So if I had multiple storage volumes or storage pools, which would result in multiple volumes, I could turn that on and turn it off accordingly. So what does that even mean? Okay, effectively, as far as basic setup goes for how I use this, we're effectively done. Now, this is the notification center up here, and this is where you'll check any updates. I'm going to clear these notifications out. We're all good here. This is the account for the person that's logged in, and we can restart or shut down the NAS. This is pretty helpful if I'm remote and I want to restart the NAS while I'm logged in remotely to somebody else's computer. I will access the NAS through the web interface on an office computer rather than turning remote access on the NAS. 601, half dozen of the other. That's just how I do. Next tab over. That turns the trying to think what the name of those widgets. It turns the widgets on or off right there. I like to leave those on. And then this is just a search window. There's a setting you just can't seem to find, but it's so much easier to use Google and YouTube. I don't know, maybe I'm old school that way, but that's generally how the way I do it. But I'm gonna go ahead and we'll just close this out. Okay, so now what? Everything's the same, Carey. Right. If I go to this PC, right, if I go to my yellow folder down here, the File Explorer, you'll notice on network locations, it sees this location down here, but that's not really what I'm interested in. If I go to the network tab here, we will see server DS224 appears here. Now we don't want this one. This will log us into the NAS interface. We want this one up here. This will open up and show us any shared folders. So here's the public folder. It's empty. And if we go back and right click on that and go to properties, it doesn't tell us the capacity there. So here's what I could do. I can go right click and map a drive letter to this location. So I'll call it drive letter. Wait, I already have a drive letter Z? How's that even possible? I want it to be drive letter Z. Make sure reconnect it sign in. I don't think that's the right IP address. Yeah. I must have mapped this to a different NAS at some point. So in order for me to reassign it, right click. Wait a minute. That's right. It's working. Never mind. I stand corrected. So now, think about this. I have added 4 terabytes of storage to that little tiny computer because instead of just having a C drive, I now have a Z drive. And this Z drive has 3.48 terabytes of space on it for me to copy files over to, no differently than I would on my C drive, except it's going over the network. It's a little slower than copying to your local drive. And what's even better is I can access these files from any computer on my network, including my phone, if it's on my network. So if I want to copy a file, let's say I'm recording this video, right? Let's say I want to edit this video. So I want to take it off of this streaming computer and I want to put it on the editing machine that's on the opposite side of this house. I can copy it to a flash drive and I can sneaker net, walk it over there, plug it in and copy it over. Or I can simply copy the file onto the network attached storage, go to the computer in the other room and edit the file right there on the storage drive if I want, or if I want it to be faster, I can copy the file over, just drop and drag it onto that computer, run it through my editing software, export that as a rendered file. But now that upload connection is too slow. It's going to take me forever to upload it to YouTube. I want to use the internet connection on this. It's a little weird that I have 2 different internet connections in the building. Most people only have 1. But because of that, I don't use this computer for editing. The computer back there is way more powerful for editing. I use this computer for streaming and I'll use this computer for uploading. So I'll take the saved file from the live video off of the streaming machine, copy it to the NAS. go to the Mac computer, copy it off the NAS so I can work on it locally. It's a little faster. Render that out after I've edited it, copy it back to the NAS. Now, I don't need to copy it back here anymore. That defeats the point of having the NAS. What I can do is go to my YouTube channel, say I want to upload a file. It says, what file do you want to upload? I go to my Z drive. I find my rendered file I copied there. I say, upload that one. It says, okay, I'm uploading. And now I've got the faster upload. It's a good 10 times faster on this network to upload than the other one. But the rendering's about 10 times faster on that one than it is on this one. And so instead of copying a file and walking it back and forth, it's right there on the NAS. And because it's got a RAID 1 configuration effectively using the hybrid RAID, I have a redundancy if the drive were to fail. It's not a backup, but it is a redundancy. So as you can imagine, files like this, when they're rendered out at 4K, is going to be 50, 60 gigs for one video. One video. And how many videos do I make a week? You can imagine it's going to eat up a lot of space over time. And I don't want it clogging up all the space on the streamer. I don't want it clogging up all the space on the editor. This is perfect for me. If somebody wants to send me a large file, hey, Carey, I made a video. Can I share it with you? I can have them, I can turn the cloud service on the Synology NAS and give them access to it as an alternative to, say, paying for an account like a Google Drive, a Microsoft Drive, or Microsoft OneDrive, or Google Drive, or Dropbox. I don't have to pay for any of that anymore. I can utilize my own. I can give them access, and I can take access away. All right. How cool is that? And it's really easy. And we didn't even get into the packages. Really quickly, let me just show you why I'm not going to get into the packages. And you can let me know when I do a follow-up video what packages you saw in the list I'm about to show you that you'd like to learn more about, or don't even wait for me. Immediately just do a YouTube search. And there's a number of other content creators out there that have probably already covered it. But if you want to hear the way I tell it, you let me know. So let's go back to log in to the Synology. I can't remember, what was the address to the Synology again? I don't know. Find.synology.com. Now, what happens if it says there's no DiskStation? What just happened? How can it say that? Try it again. And for some reason now, and I've seen this happen, and I was secretly hoping this was going to happen. Why would I want this to happen? Because I want to show you another way. Yes, there's many ways. We're going to go to Synology. Let's just type in download Synology Assistant. It's a little tiny application free from Synology. We go to the download center here. We select what our product is. We've got a NAS. Which model of NAS? We've got a DS. We're just going to call it a DS220 because I don't know that the 224 is in there. So there's our operating system. I'm looking for the utilities right up here. See how it says utilities up here? The very first thing is the Synology Assistant. Now, if you've downloaded the Synology Assistant in the past, it would probably be in your best interest to download it again because they've updated it numerous times. So even though it might work for you, if you want it to continue to have all the features, the latest features, and be able to recognize the newest Synology NASs, the last thing I want you to do is go buy a new Synology NAS because you already have one and you love it so much you want to get another one. Then the Synology Assistant won't find it because you failed to realize that the Synology Assistant needs an update to find that new NAS. So if you just always keep it up to date, you won't have to worry about that. Now, you can get it for Ubuntu, you can get it for Mac, and you can get it for Windows. We obviously want it for Windows. It's a small file. It's no big deal. It doesn't take up a lot of space or a lot of resources. I have to turn off camera one so you could see it just downloaded that in the top right corner there. And Click on that to open it up and install. You'll see the latest version there. The number is in the file name, the version number. And just go with all the defaults. It's very quick to install. But of course, you have to get permission to look through the firewall, right? Because your firewall is like, did you want something to snoop on your network? In this case, yes, we do. Thank you very much. And then this box is checked to run it as soon as we hit finish on the installer. And then I'm going to close the browser window so it doesn't confuse you. This is the Synology Assistant running, and it is scanning our network. And if the find.synology.com for any reason says I can't find anything on your network, Synology Assistant will always find it. And let's try it again. Search. Should come up relatively quickly here. A lot of times, if the Synology Assistant isn't finding it, it's because we're getting blocked by the firewall. Now, if you look down here at the bottom of the taskbar, there is something waiting for us to give it permission. Because it doesn't have permission, we have not allowed this. It's going to come back blank, and you go, ha, Carey, it doesn't work. It doesn't work because we haven't given it permission to work. Once we tell it allow access, we never have to tell it again. It'll remember that setting from this point forward for this application. Now, when we run it, it's going to find it. Isn't that amazing how math works? See how fast it found it? And then we just double click on it, and that's going to bring us to the login. Once again, I can look over at my notes. I am glad I wrote it down. Holy cow. Get it right? I got it right. All right. So the reason why I'm not going to get into the packages today is we are now at 2.5 hours on the live stream. And that's just your basic, how do you do? Here's how you get started, okay? There's nothing I've left out. Everything you should need to know to at least get a file share set up and running, get your storage pool created. Right here, everything you need to know. I've covered everything, even where the cables go, how to plug it in, where to push the buttons, why you want to look at the LEDs. We've covered a lot of information that should make you have it should leave you self-sufficient where you're not left with any questions during the setup. But if you are, you don't need to watch another video. You just need to rewatch this one again if that's the case. Now, when we get into the package center, this is just like the Microsoft Store or the Apple Store, okay? Except it's the Synology Store, and they just call it the package center. And in the package center, it defaults by showing us what packages we have installed by default. The next button down is all packages. And you can see there is a lot to choose from. There's a lot of backup packages, there's virtual machine packages, there's micro-container packages, and on, remote access packages, surveillance system, multimedia packages, and packages. And you can look through them all, or you can search for one in particular. Then you have beta packages. These are packages that may not be stable, may not be quite ready yet, but you're the kind of brave pioneer who likes to enter into uncharted territories because it's worth it to you to use something like Universal Viewer. You want to try Hyper Backup Vault, stuff like that. You can join these betas. And it's important that you get updates for any of the installed packages. Like I said, if you're getting updates automatically to your DSM, then the updated DSM may cause the version of package you have, of whatever the package is, to not function correctly or at all, which oftentimes means you have to update the package. But you've got to have like SMB service, right? That's if you want to use this on the network. And if there's ever an update to any of these default ones, I would strongly advise you grab those updates, and it'll tell you, get a little red dot notification that there's updates waiting for you on your packages. USB copy. These are just your basic ones you get by default. And there's a ton. Look, we've got TeamViewer in here. And Synology used to have on their website, they had a NAS simulator where you could log into DSM, they would create a version of DSM on a virtual machine for you to play with through your web browser. That's all just virtualized, so you can experiment what it would be like to own one of these. I mean, if you want to familiarize yourself, but it seems like a waste of time. But in any event, that's, there's antivirus in here, audio station, a DHCP server, a cloud server, a download station, exFAT access if you're plugging in, flash drives like from Mac or something. You want to be able to read that file system and copy those over directly on the NAS itself using the USB ports on the NAS. You obviously wouldn't need to do that if you were plugging into your computer, but this makes the NAS more independent. PDF viewers, Presto file server, proxy server, quick connect if you want access to your NAS from outside of the building, apart from, the whole Synology account thing we talked about. Surveillance station, storage analyzer, so you've got system utilities in there. There's a chat server in there, so if you have a small business and you want to have your own little private chatting system that, you're not going out to some social media app. Lots of stuff. There's a Synology mail server in there. It's just a crazy amount of stuff in here. Virtual machine manager, VPN server, and on and on and on and on and on. And if I started getting into that, we'd be here for a few days. And then you'd be flooded with so much information. You'd say, I can't believe he taught me so much, and I have no recollection of anything that he said. That's called information overload, but it's customizable to meet your specific needs. That's the beauty of it. So this is traditionally the way that I set up a NAS for my customers. Quite often, we are just using 2-drive NASs now. We'll put a couple of 20 terabyte drives in it. I typically use the Seagate Iron Wolves. I set up one big public share. I turn on guest access and everybody in the office can access it. If people in the company have private files, what I recommend they do is they password protect those files. So if they have QuickBooks files, Quicken, that kind of data, you can, within the QuickBooks application, you can password protect it. And the same is true with the Office documents as well. So you don't necessarily need to restrict access to individuals, rather than simply make sure that people, just if they don't have the password, they can't open PDF files you don't want them to see, for example. Now, that works for my customers. When they have a customer of theirs that wants to get on their network, that's why we have a guest network. The guest network that the router provides will give my customer's customer access to the internet, but no access to the network. So there's no way they can steal any data or eavesdrop or see anything. It'd be easier for them to just look over the shoulder of the client and look at the screen, right? Than to get on the network that way. That's why we use guest networks. But for all the employees in the company, we want them to have access to the data that other employees are working on customer calls and says, hey, what's the status of my tax return? Oh, well, who was working on your tax return? Oh, it was Bob. Okay, Bob's not here today, but hold on a second, let me look it up. Because it's all centralized, it's not password protected, or if it is, they have the passwords. They can give the customer the information, lickety split, even if the person's not there that day, someone else can take it up. And that's the whole point of working in where you have employees, is there's not just one person that does something, right? And this also means that we're not tied to any specific computer. So if one of my clients calls me and says, Carey, my computer doesn't work today. My app doesn't work. The computer isn't turning on. I go, hey, all you need to do is go sit at a different desk today. All your data is saved on the server, right? We call it the server. You didn't save the data on your computer, did you? Of course you didn't. You saved it on the server. That way you are not tied to any physical computer. Now you can go sit at somebody else's desk, use their computer for today, and I'll come out and do the repair later after hours when, obviously when they're calling me with a problem, it's always interrupting me. It's not like I'm sitting around staring at my phone waiting for it to ring. But when they call me, they're like, we need this fixed right now. What am I supposed to do? I'm one person. So it's designed that way so that they can just go sit at another desk. I'll come out there later on after hours where I'm not interrupting their business or their productivity. I can get out of the traffic. I have keys and an alarm code to get into the building, or they can meet me over there later, or we can schedule if they want to be there. But now we're not under the pressure of, you've got to get this done right now. Now they can at least get back to work, and then we can arrange for the repair in a much more relaxed and more affordable, instead of an emergency rate, a more affordable rate for my clients to pay me versus an emergency rate. So by removing the emergency, we're reducing our stress, we're keeping our customers' productivity up, and that would not be possible without a server of some kind to store the files. We can reinstall Windows, we can reinstall Word and Excel and QuickBooks and Quicken. That's no big deal. What we can't reinstall is the data they've spent thousands of hours inputting and the collection of it over how many years they've been in business. So by putting it on the server has its own redundancy. What I'm calling the server is the NAS, has its own redundancy for local failure. Then we also make a backup that we take off premises, off site, so that if anything happens, maybe a pissed off employee decides to delete everything before they leave. Maybe there's a fire. Maybe there's a flood. Maybe the sprinkler system goes off. Maybe a car goes out of control and slams into the building and crushes the server room. It's happened. Maybe there's a big storm and the roof leaks. Maybe a pipe breaks. Maybe an employee clicks on the wrong thing and they get a virus that just devastates everything connected on the network. It's important your backup is out of the building in case of fire, theft, flood. It's also important the data backup is not connected to the network in case of a network exploit, or what's the word? If the threat exists on the network, then everything on the network is, in theory, affected. So by making sure the backup stays off the network, except when the backup's being made, once it's made, we disconnect it and we take it off premises. So now we have multiple ways of recovery, whether it's the recycle bin, whether it's a drive failure, or whether it's an accidental deletion, a virus, an intentional deletion. There's so many ways people lose their data. Power company has a power spike. It blows the board on the Synology NAS. Now all your data's fine, your drives are fine, you have no way to get to it. I hope you had your backup so you at least can get you by until you can get a replacement in place. So just a lot of things to think about. And when you're in business, the amount of data you have this year is going to be more than you had last year. And likely even as a home user, the amount of data you need to back up this year is way more data than you backed up last year. And likely next year, it's going to just keep getting bigger. It never gets smaller. It always gets bigger and bigger. As your smartphones have these large megapixel cameras, you're taking more and more pictures. You want to save those pictures. The pictures are higher definition. They're larger in size. Now, one picture takes up what 1,000 pictures used to take up in capacity. But oh my gosh, they're so vivid and clear. And, you know, why wouldn't you want that? But now you need more space to store it. But storing it in one place leaves it vulnerable to failure. It leaves it vulnerable to a myriad of ways that you can lose your data. So you need it at least in two places. And then when you put it on here, not only do you have the redundancy of the RAID array, but you have the ability, in theory anyway, if you choose to have access to it through your phone or through another device over the internet securely. And we're just scratching the surface. There's so much more to this. Do any of you have any questions about a network attached storage that I have not discussed that I can address for you right now? If I skipped over something? Do you have an inquiring mind and you want to know? We'll take this time now to take your questions. We'll give this about a maximum more of 20 minutes because that'll be 3 hours, and that's a long time to be talking about one thing. But I don't want you to be intimidated by it. I want you to see how easy it is. And I want you to think, use your imagination in all the unique ways you would use this. Do you have one? And if so, how do you use it? Are you considering maybe, what if you had one of these? Would you use it, and what would you use it for? Planet Cryos had contributed $2 earlier in Super Chat. I missed that. Sorry, Planet Cryos. Thank you for your $2. He says, getting my Synology fix in, I have the DS220. Oh, he's got the same one I do. Randolph Slavin with a 10-pound contribution. Thank you, Randolph. Paul O'Brien contributes €2. He says, read my Amazon gift card. Oh, I was going to do that earlier, wasn't I? So while I wait for you guys to put any questions or to answer my questions in the chat, I want to read what Paul O'Brien wrote on a gift card he sent earlier today before the show started. I meant to do that and I completely forgot. Paul says, although my Revolut card was scammed yesterday, I want to say thank you to Luke Greenia for paying it forward, so to speak. So I use what I could on my other card, but it's a way of acknowledging the good deed that he did for me yesterday. Luke Greenia is a great guy. He says, thanks again, Carey, for another great stream. Educational and informative as always. And new subscribers would greatly appreciate your input and advice. Never let it be said, I don't understand this last part, but I appreciate you. Thank you again for supporting the channel. And yeah, we have a number of regular members here, Luke Greenia being part of it, Peter Laycock. All those names you see in blue are all regular members of our chat room when we're live. And they've all proven themselves to be kind, courteous, caring individuals. So right now, I am showing the stream is buffering. The only reason I'm speaking right now is I'm not quite sure if you can hear me, but I think we're back. I am recording the stream locally just in case something like that were to happen. It looks like the internet connection hit a little bump in the road. It's trying to pull me off stage. I think it says, you're on long enough, Carey. But thank you again to Paul. And let me see in the comments if there's any other questions that we can address here before we wrap it up for today. Andy Kane says, I don't have any questions. It was a very good way of setting up one. Thank you. Right on. Barry Klein says, data always expands to fit any available space. If you've asked a question earlier, I didn't see it, you'll need to re-ask your question again, because it does eventually scroll off the top, but I won't be able to see it. So I am going to take this time now just to address any questions. Other than that, we will wrap it up for today. I want to thank the folks at Synology for sending us the unit and allowing us to review it. It's available as a pre-order right now. It's supposed to be out on August the 9th. Today, as a reminder, is August the 4th. So again, a thank you to Synology for letting us take an early peek at what's coming out. That makes me feel good that they're entrusting me. There's a lot of different content creators they can choose from to associate a new product release to. And anytime I'm selected, it's always an honor, and I appreciate that. And I do my best to convey the amount of information that I have about it. Obviously, after a product is released, I will learn from other people some features of the product I didn't know about. So ideally, we'll do another follow-up with this unit, make the most of it, and we can talk about individual packages or use case scenarios that you guys want to learn more about. That's the plan. Craig Buckley says the USB copy button is not a reset button. Perfect example. Right? Because I said I don't remember there being a reset button on here. It's a USB copy button. And obviously, it's a feature I've never used before. Thank you for that correction. And it's something I will have to study up on. I don't ever plug USB flash drives or USB hard drives into my NASs. It's just, why would I? I plug them into the computers and then I just copy the data through the network onto the NAS. The NAS is usually put into a different room. It's out of the way. It's nowhere convenient where I'm going to be plugging things into it. However, in the fairness of a proper review, I should know what the buttons do. I apologize where I apparently dropped the ball there, and I appreciate that correction. Again, it's something I've never used, and I'll have to look into that and see what scenarios people use that. Sarge Tech says, what a knowledge packed stream, chock full of useful information, and thank you. Right on. Thank you, Sarge Tech. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for supporting the channel. A shout out and a thank you to everybody who has contributed super chats today. Craig Casabona, Planet Cryos, Randolph Slavin, Paul O'Brien, Find Me in Hawaii. Thank you for your contribution. And he's renewed his membership now on month number 14. And he said, wishing everyone a safe and wonderful weekend. Thank you, Ken. Ian Gooch, thank you for your super chat, as well as Ben Laird, Mike Visions, Richard Palmentier, and of course, our good friend Peter Laycock. Buster, thank you as always for your generosity and your support of the channel. And onto the Amazon gift cards, one more time, a shout out and a thank you to Gary Tatum, Alan Lindas, Gilbert Breidendorf, Nick Caffrey, and Paul O'Brien. You guys rock. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. What price range do I think this will be? I think this should be about $350. Starshine says, great tips, Carey. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. The processor is a 4-thread processor, by the way, just so you know. It's a little bit more powerful than some others using dual core, with 2 threads. This one has 4 threads. Bull142 contributes a $5 super chat. Thank you, Bull142. Andy Kane says, it's not bad in euros. There are a lot of other channels here on YouTube that get into varying levels of geekiness about NAS reviews and ways to use NASs. Don't be shy about searching YouTube if you want more information and you want to hear it presented a different way, or you want a different, more technical explanation. There's a lot of other content creators that specialize in doing nothing but NAS reviews. If it's something that interests you, that information is just a click away, and I would encourage you to check them out. Adam Wood said, I have the Synology DS923 Plus, and it's great. Paul Kitching said he uses his as a secondary save drive for work files in Photoshop, C4D, and some other videos. That's all work related. Nick Poverman said he uses his to do backups and as a media server using Plex. So I see many of you are not only familiar with NASs, but own one, and many of you own Synology NASs at that. Steve Chappell or Chappelle says, I use it for pictures and movie storage. Yeah, those are things that can take a lot of space. It's very ideal for that. Ron Barner said he's been a member for a year. That is awesome. Thank you for continuing to support the channel, Ron. All right, I don't see any other questions coming in here, so I think we're good to wrap it up. So thank you again for watching. Thanks to all my friends in blue for helping keep it civil in the live chat. Sometimes we get people in here that act immaturely, and it's an unnecessary disruption. Didn't happen to me today because of my friends in blue making sure that people are being respectful. I appreciate that very much. And to all those people with the gold badges next to their names, those are all members of the channel that help support us and keep us sponsor free. Thank you guys for that. In the video description below this video are all the links for everything I talked about today, including pre-ordering a Synology if you want to, or going to the website to learn more and what other options are out there. Also a list of software and services that I recommend, just a few. And what else? Thank you to Camera Girl for today's thumbnail. She did a great job on the thumbnail, didn't she? And yeah, we will look towards using this NAS for use case scenarios. So if you're curious about how to set up the NAS to do a certain function and you want to put in a request for me to make that video, if I get enough requests, I'll take them. You can leave your comment in the comment section below the video. Any unanswered questions, leave them in the comment section. I'll do my best to respond if it's a question I can answer. And yeah, we'll follow up with another review as we go a little bit more in depth beyond the introduction into some of the other ways you can use a NAS. And, you know, instead of talking about it, actually show it. That'll wrap it up for me for today. Thanks again for everybody joining us. And if you're new here, we hope you'll consider joining us regularly. We'd love to have you part of our community. Thank you for watching. Have a safe weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. I'll see you all very, very soon. Every Monday, as a reminder, we do a video live at 1 p.m. Pacific time, specifically for members only. Those people with the badges next to their names are the only ones that can watch that video or participate in that chat. It never becomes public. It's always just a private members only club there. You're always welcome to join. We're happy to have more. And those are reserved for Monday live shows at 1 o'clock. I will make videos throughout the week as time permits. The only scheduled shows every week are the members only Mondays at 1 and our Friday live shows also at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Anything that airs any other day of the week is just as time permits because I work as a computer technician in real life and I'm trying to balance two different jobs. So sometimes business is slow, I can do more YouTube videos, and other times the opposite. So it's a little bit chaotic in that way. But thank you so much for hanging out. We'll see you all very, very soon. And until next time, bye for now.